All right, let's get started, I guess. Before we begin, I want to remind everybody here, may that be commissioners or public or otherwise, that everybody in this room is to follow our code of conduct at this meeting, including commenting on the specific item, agenda item, addressing the full body. And public speakers are allowed to speak, but however, cannot engage in a conversation and or ask questions directly to council members and or city employees. And all members, whether staff, public, or commissioners, are expected to refrain from abusive language, as always. And failure to comply may result in getting expelled from this room and or worse. And also, given the number of public members that we have today, I would like to set the expectation up front that once again, that the commission is here to listen to comments, but we cannot respond to comments from the public at this meeting. Just to give you a context, one, this is city rule. Two, if nobody spoke, we have about 110 minutes worth of agenda. So just keep that in mind. This is 6:02 right now. Staff are here to answer questions from the commission, and we will not be able to read emails that we got as public comments, but in the public record section of our agenda item, the commission will acknowledge them. And other bookkeeping notes, the parking validation is just outside
It's inside, but right by
the door. Okay, it's right there in the back. And also the closest bathroom is if you walk out of this room and go right and then go all the way almost to the exit area, you turn right again. That's where the bathrooms are. With that, this meeting will come to order. Can the clerk do roll call, please?
Annie Bekele,
Present.
Bill DiVincenzi, Glenn Garfunkel,
Present.
Macwin Savio de Souza, Lucia Marquez, Eric McCod,
Present.
Aaron Nelson,
present.
Victor Niemeyer, Christine Wynn Faith,
Here.
Philip Remaker, Rio Wakabayashi.
Present. All right, thank you very much. Up next is the public record. Is there a motion to receive and file the public record? Okay. Second, anyone second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? This motion passes. Okay, now this is the time for public comment on items that are not on the agenda. That last sentence is very, very much a key word here. The Brown Act prohibits the commission from discussing any items that are not on that is on the agenda right now. Any speakers right now? You have the floor for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Jordan Moldow, resident of District 3, speaking on behalf of myself. Just two things for you tonight. One, folks might have seen in the news that the governor announced more rebates for electric vehicles. Yay for electric vehicles. But I think this, again, shows, the state and local governments are throwing a lot of money and making sure people electrify their cars. And I just like to make sure that we are all keeping in mind that people should also be getting on bikes if they are willing and able to. And I really continue to encourage the city to invest in helping people adopt electric bikes or regular bikes or scooters or what have you. Second, the Valley Transportation Authority, VTA, has a plan that they are potentially adopting their express lane strategic plan, which talks about their plan for adding express lanes on all of the highways in our region. Within that plan, some of the express lanes can only be implemented by adding brand new lanes to the highways, or in some cases, they want to have 2 express lanes in a place where only 1 HOV lane exists today, which means they have to add new lanes to the highway to accomplish that. Adding lanes to highways induces a huge amount of car travel, which increases the amount of congestion on our local roads, increases air pollution. Not good for our environment. So I encourage people to speak up and tell VTA that they shouldn't be adding new lanes to our highway and increasing the amount of local congestion. We don't know exactly when this will be agendized, but it might be on Thursday, August 6th, or maybe not, maybe later. Thank you.
Thank you, resident. For public comment, moving forward, I will, and I guess for commission too, I will tap the back of this gavel with about 15 seconds left, and I will tap this when the time is up. Please wrap up. Please try to wrap up when I tap the back of my gavel. And when I tap this side of the gavel, please definitely wrap up. Once again, we have a lot of people today and a lot of public members. I'm excited to speak, but the time is valuable for everybody involved. So thank you very much. Any other public comment that is for things regarding items that are not on the agenda? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Julia Hennigan, and I'm an incoming freshman at Hillsdale High School. I'm here today because I'm concerned about these new data centers and how they could affect our community. We know there are risks to AI. Founders of AI companies, the CEOs of OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google DeepMind, signed a one-sentence AI risk statement that read, "Mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority, alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war." I'm here today asking all of you the same thing that these signatories asked. Please consider all the facts. Don't rush into judgment, and don't think that this issue is unimportant, because this affects our entire community. AI risk will affect the energy we use, the water we drink, the air we breathe, the economy, and so many other aspects of our world, because AI will change the entire Earth. And it's up to us to ensure that this impact is positive. Thank you.
Thank you, resident. Just a reminder, however, that data centers are on the agenda item today. So moving forward, if any other public members have comments regarding data centers, please wait until we get to that agenda item. Any other public comments for items that are not on the agenda today? Seeing none, up next is the consent calendar. Would anybody like to pull any items for discussion? This is for the commissioners.
I just have one sort of clarifying comment about the agenda and the attachments, which is that I believe attachment number, sorry, let me pull it up. I don't know if it has a letter attached to it, but like a letter, we have A through F for the attachments, but just the last attachment that was recently added to the agenda attachments document is relevant to the large load check-in items. So just so that we can keep in mind to have the discussion then.
Thank you, and noted. Any other comments from the commission? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes of previous meeting?
To approve.
Okay, motion to second. Okay, all those in favor? Oh, I have to vote too. All those opposed? This motion clearly passes. Do we have any reports On the item next, do we see? Yes, we do. Okay, so next item is the reports and reports, which is the 6 months look ahead.
As you can see, it's not too full on the current 6-month look ahead, but we do anticipate additional items being added as we get into this new fiscal year. Some items worth noting, our building performance ordinance update was deferred and will now be presented on August 10th. And then we also have the Climate Advisory Commission annual report and work plan, which we'll be voting to finalize today, going to Transportation and Environment on the same day. And then we also have our Climate Smart annual status update on December 7th. So those are some of the key items.
Thank you, Anne.
Anybody has questions?
Okay, any questions? Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the old business, which the first one is the commission work plan for fiscal year 26 to 27. Is this Anne again?
Yeah.
Okay.
We did vote on the work plan at the last meeting, but there was a minor edit. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention. At the last meeting, we did have, for this meeting in July, we had it as a large load tariff presentation that was going to be made, but we did adjust that based on the commission's feedback and request. And so that was changed to the large load customer status. So just wanted to bring that to your attention that there was a minor edit and make sure that that was approved by the commissioners.
Okay, thank you, Anne. Any comments from the commissioners?
I do have one. I'm curious if we can add, so that we're specific about this, the SJCE and the city environmental issues for public outreach. I think it's evident that public outreach is important to the commission, and I think it would be nice to have one of the staff report to us specifically on the public outreach program.
For data centers or for
In
just
general.
in general? That is, it should be on the outreach and engagement strategy is May 20th.
On May 20th?
Yeah, 2027.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks.
Any other comments? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve? Okay.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? This motion also unanimously passes. Next is old business item number 2, Commission Annual Report for fiscal year 2025 to 2026, which I also believe is you once again.
I thought I wasn't going to need the microphone today, but apparently, great. So this was another item that we brought to the last meeting, but we deferred that to this meeting to give the commissioners additional time to review. I did not receive any edits, so this is the same version that was presented at the last meeting, but hoping that it would be voted to approve on today.
On that, to that end, thank you, Anne. On that, to that end, any comments from the commissioners? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve? Okay, anyone second?
I second.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? This motion also unanimously passes. Okay, now on to the new business. First item on the agenda is the large load check-in. Who has the floor? Is this Erica who has the floor? Okay, sorry?
Erica and Manuel.
Okay, Erica and Manuel, you have the floor.
Testing. Okay. Good afternoon, good evening, commissioners and members of the public. I'm Erica Grappo, Strategic Energy Customer Development Lead with the Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs. I'm joined by Manuel Pineda, Deputy City Manager in the City Manager's Office. Next slide, please. Okay. I'd like to start this evening by recognizing the significance of data centers and other large energy use projects. In response to the community interest, the administration is committed to developing uniform standards to help better define the rules for permitting for these project types. These rules will focus on water usage, energy consumption and sourcing, air quality, as well as other environmental factors. Lastly, we'll clarify how the community can better engage on these projects as they move through the permitting pipeline. The timeline for developing these standards is shown at the bottom of the slide. We'll be hosting a community listening session in late August. It will be open to all members of the public to share their thoughts. This will be followed by a series of small group working sessions to provide more detailed feedback. We'll refine the standards and then host a second community meeting in October with the goal of presenting the uniform standards to council in December. I'd also like to share that we now have a new webpage that shows all the data center and other large energy use projects that have either submitted applications or have approved recent planning applications. The QR code on this will take you to the page. Don't worry, it'll show up on the next page. So in case you don't miss it, don't get it now. Oh, sorry, next slide. Oh, there it is again. So you still have time. So I wanted to focus on the projects themselves because I've received a number of questions about just how many projects are in the queue. And I want to caution that the number of projects will fluctuate as new projects are submitted and others drop out. Not every project that submits an application is going to be built. So this is the list as of this past Monday, just a few days ago. And this is the same list that you'll see on the webpage that the QR code is pointing you to. The website version will provide more detail on the project description, including links to the permit record and to other environmental documents for those that have reached that stage. As you can see, we have 7 projects that are currently under review. 6 are data centers and 1 is an R&D facility. While they are similar, data centers are different than R&D facilities. Data centers host cloud services, they store customer data, they provide internet services, or operate as enterprise computing infrastructure. R&D facilities are used for chip design, hardware development, prototype testing, internal engineering research, and large-scale computing used for research and development. One key operational difference is that R&D facilities will have minimal backup generators. Unlike data centers, which back up the entire facility, since data centers rent server space for external clients and need backup generators to ensure that the data stays live in case of an electrical outage, R&D facilities do not have the same amount of backup generation. So for those projects that have approved planning applications, that's the table below, there are 3 approved data center projects and 1 R&D facility. Again, I encourage everyone to visit the webpage. The QR code is linked there. And for members of the audience, these slides will be posted so you can link to the page there. Next slide, please. So I want to go back now and talk a little bit about how all this began. So I'm going to take us back to March of 2025, a little over a year ago. We had a special council meeting, and at that council meeting, the city council directed the administration to pause what was then our exploration of becoming our own municipal electric utility, and directed us to negotiate a formal implementation agreement with PG&E. That agreement was executed in July of 2025. It sets clear roles, dedicated staffing, and enforceable performance measures to speed electric delivery for large energy users. It also reflects the City Council's direction to support large energy customers. Those are projects that require 20 megawatts or more because of their significant impact for economic activity and city revenue. Next slide. Under the implementation agreement with PG&E, city staff meet with PG&E every 2 weeks. We review substation upgrades, transmission planning, project-specific energization timelines. This coordination helps reduce uncertainty, identify risks earlier, and better align city permitting and development pipeline timelines with PG&E's planning and construction schedule. The team also monitors PG&E's performance. Each quarter, and in fact, we just had one meeting today, each quarter, projects are formally scored against the milestones established in the agreement. As of today, 2 projects have been energized, and the remaining 10 projects are slated to be energized by 2030. In addition to these 12, there is also interest from others in adding an additional number of projects to the agreement, though that has not happened yet. I want to clarify something because I think there's some confusion on the numbers. These projects that are in PG&E's application queue is different than the number that the city has in our planning permit application queue. Some of these projects have yet to submit to the city because they're still waiting to get further along in their energization timelines. Similarly, there are projects that are in the city's queue that are not participating in this formal agreement with PG&E. So the numbers are not going to line up evenly. Next slide, please. I want to zoom out a little bit and talk to you about some of the major transmission upgrades that are planned for this area. Between 2028 and 2034, we're building out, CAISO, which is the California Independent Systems Operator, is building out more than 2,000 megawatts of planned regional capacity. CAISO, as I mentioned, is the California Independent Systems Operator. They are the state agency that oversees the state's electric transmission grid. So a bit of an analogy here. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this, but for folks in the audience, the transmission grid is sort of like the freeway system for electrons. It's the system that moves massive amounts of electricity from all the renewable power plants or otherwise across the state or across state lines. So the transmission grid, the yellow lines are 2 CAISO projects that are expected, actually they've just started construction this summer. Those are being built by LS Power, and those are slated to be in service in 2028, the 2 yellow ones. There are 2 additional high voltage lines planned. Those are the ones in blue. And the first of the blue, which is going to connect the 2 lines, that will be coming online in the 2030 timeframe. That one has also been awarded to LS Power. And then the last line, which is down near the bottom there, that is slated to come from the Central Valley into South San Jose around 2034. The Metcalf to Manning project is also expected to improve access to renewable energy from the Central Valley. Overall, these projects reflect a significant regional grid expansion that can help with future electrification growth in San Jose. I also want to underscore that these projects, which CAISO initially put into their planning process 7 or 8 years ago, was predicated on electricity growth beyond just data centers. So this is for electric vehicles, electrification of homes, et cetera. So CAISO saw that there was a need for bringing more electricity to the Bay Area years ago. Next slide, please. So as the city continues to improve infrastructure readiness and attract large energy users, I want to be clear about the benefits and the concerns related to data centers. Large data centers represent significant fiscal opportunity for the city, particularly through property and utility tax. Because they consume large amounts of electricity, they generate stable, predictable revenue that supports the general fund. For example, a 50 to 99 megawatt data center, once fully ramped up, could generate between $3 million and $7 million annually in revenue for city services. Unlike many other forms of development, data centers add little traffic and require limited ongoing services once operational. And keeping these projects in San Jose allows the city to capture more of the fiscal benefit of the digital economy while building on existing infrastructure investments. Next slide. I'll finish my presentation and we'll do, next slide, please. There has been a pretty healthy discussion online and in community meetings about the risks that data centers pose. I just want to spend a few minutes illustrating some of the differences between data centers built in San Jose compared to other states. First is the size of the data centers. In California, we're currently limited to 99 megawatts, whereas in other states, you're seeing data centers that are 20 or 10 or 20 times bigger. So the impact on resources are much more significant elsewhere. In San Jose, data centers have access to over 100 miles of recycled water. And we impose restrictions through a water supply assessment that analyzes whether there is enough capacity to support the project. Through San Jose Clean Energy, data centers can be powered with 93% carbon neutral, of which 62% is renewable. Much of the concern that I've heard is around backup generators. The Bay Area Air District caps runtime at fewer than 50 hours a year, but many data centers opt to restrict their runtime even further based on their individual air permits. And lastly, San Jose is particularly unique in our transparency. We publish the environmental impact documents that are relevant to each project. As I mentioned at the outset, the website that we have put up with all of the projects has links to the environmental documents. So those are all public. Anybody can go in and understand what the analysis and the modeling said about air quality, emissions, noise, etc. So just a little bit about how San Jose is doing things a little differently than what you might be hearing in the news in other parts of the country. Next slide. Okay, don't worry. I'm not going to go through this entire slide. We don't have enough time to go through this whole flow chart, but I really like this diagram because for those who are unfamiliar with our planning permitting process, it really illustrates just how many steps there are and reviews there are to get a project approved. But in particular, oh, and by the way, this is just to get an approval for planning. This doesn't even cover the review for construction drawings and building plans. That comes later. But what I want to point two things on this page. First is that you see the steps where there is public hearing. In the orange box on the bottom left, you see that for projects like data centers and others as well, but since we're talking about data centers, public notice is mailed to property owners within 1,000 feet of the project, and they're invited to a virtual community meeting to share their thoughts, and they can continue to provide comments to the city by email even after those community meetings. And then there's the environmental review. So up on the top right, you can see in the green shaded area, there are 8 different findings that could happen based on the environmental analysis. And depending on these findings, the path for the approval differs. For findings 1 through 7, basically everything except for significant and unavoidable impacts, the project is going to likely to go through a director's hearing. Otherwise, it goes directly to Planning Commission. But in either case, there is public notice mailed, and community members are encouraged to provide written and verbal comments along the way. Every project on our list has either gone through this process or will go through this process. There is no fast-tracking data centers. They are all required to go through these steps like any other development project. Next slide. Lastly, I want to touch a little bit about rates. We hear in the news about other states' electricity bills going up because of data centers. That is very concerning. In California, the California Public Utilities Commission oversees rates, as I'm sure these commissioners are very familiar with. There is currently a proposed electric rule that would standardize the rules around who pays for what for large energy users. And they call it the large load customers. That's the technical term for large energy users. Essentially, what the rule would do is require large load customers to pay upfront for the cost associated with bringing their project onto the grid. That's type 1, 2, and 3 costs that you see there. Type 4 costs, which are attributed to the statewide transmission network, those would remain shared by all California ratepayers. But as a reminder, type 4 costs, which are also known as transmission access charges, are calculated based on how much energy you use. So while the type 4 costs are socialized, they are also scaled. So if you use more energy, you pay more into the transmission network. Okay, last slide. Thank you for your time tonight. Manuel and I are available for questions after public comment.
Okay, thank you. We'll take comments and questions from the commissioners first.
I just had a clarifying question.
Go ahead.
And that was on the revenue coming to the city, the 5 to 7 or 3 to 7 million. What is the path to that? Is it fees? Is it revenue coming through margins that they clean? That's where's that? What is that?
Yeah. So it's probably a little undercounted. That number represents utility tax revenue and property tax revenue. So property tax revenue is about $500,000 to $1 million, depending on which side of the scale you're on, 50 megawatt versus 99. But the bulk of that revenue is through utility taxes. So we, the city, get 5% on gross receipts of utility bills. So whether that's water, sewage, telecommunications, energy is one of them. And so we get a check from PG&E every quarter. And actually some of it is paid by San Jose Clean Energy too. But yeah, that's how that, it's 5% on gross receipts.
And it's independent on whether they're.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And in fact, if they are in just PG&E and not in the CCA, we actually make more money because their rates are higher.
Thank you. We'll go this direction. Money.
I have quite a few questions, but I can just get started with a couple. One of them is, so transmission network upgrades, in particular that big one coming up through South San Jose, that was a focus of this presentation. Is that part of the type for transmission upgrades that are paid by all
Yes.
ratepayers? And that is assessed based on each ratepayer's energy usage, correct?
Yes. So on your bill, there is a transmission access charge, and that is a per kilowatt hour charge based on how much energy you use. But the projects that CAISO, that's the California Independent Systems Operator, those projects are paid for through the transmission access charge by all California ratepayers. And I also want to add that those projects have already been funded. So anything that's been going out to bid or being built, those projects have already been funded.
Okay, so just a general comment there, that is concerning because if we just as a placeholder, say 50% of this increase in energy demand is required by the data centers, 50% is everything else, electrification, et cetera, then the data centers are the demand that is causing this project to be done. So that cost is being transferred onto the rest of the ratepayers, although if data centers had not been built, that project would not have been needed to have been done.
Was there a question?
Just a comment and a question if that's like the correct understanding of it.
Yeah, so the California Independent System Operator does something called the transmission planning process. As part of the transmission planning process, to look at the entire transmission network in the state to figure out what the projects are. Certainly, when you look at the new transmission lines, a big component of that is related to large load energy customers, as Erica mentioned. But I also want to note that it's not just that. If you look at kind of the needs of the state when it comes to electrification and electric vehicles, transmission network upgrades are needed to be able to accomplish those goals as well. So I would have to go back and look at the modeling to tell you what percents they are. But it's look at it holistically. So we need transmission network upgrades for everything. The second part, I do want to add as well that when you add additional transmission, it also creates more reliability because you have more transmission coming into the city. So if a line goes down, a line has to be shut down, having alternative transmission access points also creates additional reliability. I do want to highlight again what Erica said, that you're right, that those projects will, they're being built for different reasons, but ultimately they're funded through transmission access charges. So depending on how much energy you use, you pay more what's called TAC. So if you're a large load energy customer that's you're using 100 megawatts, you will use a percent and it'll be based on that TAC compared to, say, if you're a single family homeowner.
Thank you. I'll just ask one more question before turning it over to the other commissioners. Currently, are natural gas fuel cells to power data centers something that is allowed in San Jose and the rest of California? And is that currently being pursued or sort of ideated by any of the developers?
Yeah, so natural gas fuel cells are used by some data centers and other users in the state. It's not just data centers that use natural gas fuel cells or here in San Jose. And that's certainly an option for them currently as well. That would be a private agreement between the property owner and the fuel cell provider.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go, Glenn first.
A couple questions. Go back to page 5. Sorry, we can go to page 5. If you can clarify for me. Yeah, so of these listed projects, have all of them, or what fraction of them have received supplemental use permits?
I don't think any of these, except for the ones that were energized, I think they are all still working their way through the planning process. So I don't think any of the ones that are yet to be energized. Oh, I'm sorry.
But
Well, actually, okay. So it's meant to be kept confidential what these projects are. So I can't say which projects are which, but I can say that, so the 2 that are energized, those obviously have approved permits. And then there's one other that was also approved.
A3.
Yeah, I think it's A3. But I think all the other ones are still working their way through the approval process. There might be one more, but I'd have to go back and double check.
I see. So,
I'm sorry, just one clarification. And actually, some of the projects have not even submitted
Right.
for permits yet as well.
some have not
Correct.
Have not submitted yet.
submitted applications.
They have not submitted applications to the city. This is PG&E's queue of projects. So imagine if you are a developer, you want to make sure that you are getting energy before you submit planning application to the city. So these projects are ones that are working their way through PG&E's application queue, which is different than the city permit process.
I see, but I'm a little confused because they're in the city. They need a permit
And they'll come.
from the city.
Yeah, they will be submitting soon. Some of these have been submitted, but some have not yet.
So the second column, I was thinking that was expected energization
Correct.
time.
Yeah, that is correct.
That is energy.
That is when PG&E, that is the requested in-service date from PG&E. But keep in mind,
But-
energization does not necessarily mean that they're opening their doors, right? So in some cases, you have to be energized, could be months before you finish the final completion of your building. So they're 2 different dates.
I see. I would think a building would take 1 to 2 years or more. Okay.
So I'm just mean in terms of, so there is a project that we toured recently that is supposed to be energized in August of this year, but then they have to go through final rounds of testing and inspections. I don't think that they're actually going to be ready for business until maybe later this year or early next year. Like they have to go through, a certificate of occupancy, et cetera. So I realize that this is part of why
Surprising.
this-
They need permits from you for water and other environmental studies before, I think before there's all this investment.
So 2 things. One is I just want to make sure that we're clear that the energization date, that's the agreement between PG&E and the developer.
Yeah.
And there's a separate permit process that they'll have to go through with the city to see if ultimately they will have a project that will be approved or will not be approved. A lot of developers will do parallel work at risk, and they choose to do that from a timing perspective. But that PG&E process is separate from the city process, and all the environmental documents, all the analysis, all the approvals for the city permitting still has to be done. With PG&E, and from previously, I used to run an electric utility. You do tend to start early on the electrical piece of it because one, sometimes it requires a lot of engineering and improvements to be able to provide electrical capacity, and there's a lot of questions that have to be answered. And in some cases, equipment has to be ordered up to 3 years in advance.
Right.
So those agreements are between PG&E and them. The last piece is energization is very different from building completion. And in many cases, because the risk associated with this, right, developers want to make sure that they will be energized at some point. and they prefer to be energized in advance, way in advance of project completion to minimize their risk. That's why those dates are not aligning, but that doesn't, every requirement in the city, they still has to be met, all the environmental analysis, all the community outreach, all the permitting process.
How many of these are subject to Rule 30 like requirements on
So rule.
front payment?
Yeah, the CPUC proposed electric rule 30 is not yet been in place. However, each of the projects go through their own sort of tariff assessment through the CPUC, either as an advice letter or as a special facilities agreement. So what Rule 30 would do is it would standardize it so that these projects are not considered on a one-off basis where they have to negotiate the cost structure for each one. But the themes of Rule 30 are still being applied to these projects where we are seeing that PG&E is requiring that the developer pay for the cost to bring it onto the grid upfront by the customer.
So can we go to the flow chart? Question on the flow chart for the process for approval.
Can you
on the sub.
go forward to the eye chart?
So, yeah,
you.
the
Thank you.
orange, in the orange box you highlight, this is basically the beginning of community. This is the beginning of community engagement. Question is our applications posted and available to the public?
Before that, yes.
Anywhere before that?
Yes. So at the very beginning, step one, after they make an appointment, then step one is applicant submits the application.
Right.
That is when, if it's a data center or it's a large energy project, it will be posted to our website with links to the permit document.
Okay.
Now, in some cases, that project is going to be posted before they have paid their fees. Technically, we don't start the review until their fees are paid. So it'll be in sort of a pending state. But yeah, that all of that documentation is available as soon as they submit.
Okay. One last question. And it goes to Manny's question about fuel cells. I'm a little surprised if the developer is planning to use fuel cells, isn't that something you guys are notified of in the permitting process and you have to approve?
They will be included as part of the permitting process. I'll have to get back to you in specifically what permits are needed for fuel cells within the city. What I meant earlier with regards to whether they're going to use fuel cells or not, that's or they're going to use sounds like clean energy or Pacific Gas and Electric, or a combination of both. The deal, whether they want to use the fuel cells or not for electric purposes, that's between the private property owner and the fuel cell provider.
Right.
But there is a permitting process, but we'll have to get back to you on exactly what the process would be.
Okay. I would think, since we are interested in emissions, that would be something that we tracking carefully. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Karen?
I am. Thank you, Glenn, for your questions. Those were great. I think I just have so many comments, maybe even more than questions, but in terms of public input, you mentioned that you put on the website at step one on that chart. What else do you do? I mean, the public isn't necessarily alerted to something that San Jose website, our website is huge. So how do you alert the public besides just putting it on the website at that stage?
So yeah, so you can sign up to be alerted for development activity. So if any of you have ever read a George Avalos article in the newspaper, you know that he is tracking stuff. So there are alerts that you can sign up for. It's not going to be specifically for data center projects, but you can sign up to receive emails and notifications when new projects are entered into the system. Specifically for data center and large load projects, we are committed to keeping that website up to date. But there isn't currently a mechanism for notifying people other than those that are within the 1,000-foot radius of the project. They are obviously going to be getting I think it's a mailed postcard to let them know that this project is happening. You wanna-
So, yeah.
Yeah, just wanted to add a couple more things. One is that the planning, building, and code enforcement does have a formal outreach policy related to development. Is something we can get for you and share with you. And depending on the type of project it is, it has different criteria of how it's advertised for each project. And, that's something planning, building, code enforcement does. I don't have it memorized, but certainly happy to share that with you. In addition, I do want to note that, as Erica mentioned on the first slide, that we are doing the standards for large load customers and data centers. One of the items that council asked us to look at as part of the standards is community outreach. So we will be looking at community outreach to see kind of what is currently done, if there's anything different that we want to do as part of future process.
When is that going to be done?
The current schedule,
Or second.
I'm sorry, when? August?
we're going to the one slide that shows it. So yeah, so if you can look at the last bullet point under the standards is clear and consistent process for community engagement. That's something we got from the council as direction to look at as part of this. And right now our schedule is to be back at council in December with the standards.
I would say that's not soon enough. And I think one of the issues I have with all of this is that a lot of these things are goals, but they don't specify the action that is taken to honor that goal. And so that's one of them. We need dates for public input, and specifically how you're going to do that. And if you could get that information to the public, but also to Ann for the commissioners, that would be great.
Yeah, so for each development project, obviously the dates are attached to when the project's going forward, but we'll get you a copy of the policy to make sure that everybody has the same information.
That's great. So public hearing on the chart, it's not up, but your big chart, I've noticed that, again, this is all about public notice, that you have public notice happening fairly late. So why is that? You've got public notice mailed, but then you've got more hearings, I think, are happening later. Are they happening in August? Am I remembering that correctly?
Sorry, so this is this flow chart is showing the process that happens for each development project that is going through a development application. So this does not have dates associated with it. These are the steps along the process. So sorry if that was confusing. My point with this was just to show there was some questions that I heard from community members in the past that was like, members of the public are not being notified when this project is happening. And so I wanted to illustrate that for projects that are going through this pipeline, data centers or otherwise, the community, those within 1,000 feet buffer are being notified. And there is an avenue for them to engage in the process. So that's what this chart was meant to illustrate. Yeah.
Okay. And sort of following up on something that Glenn mentioned, and I understand that you have a process that, has to work for everyone, but I am wondering that, by the time you get to the permit process, so much has been done, so much money has been invested, that even though you mentioned that it's not a given, it seems to me that it would be really difficult for the city to back off from permitting after so much time and money's been spent on a particular project. So I don't know that there's a question there, but it's a comment that I just feel that it doesn't feel that the city would likely back off from permitting unless there was some serious issue involved.
Well, ultimately, the decision is it either goes to a director's hearing or the planning commission or city council. And there are projects that are not approved, or there are projects where there are conditions attached to those projects in order for them to be approved. And, ultimately that's the discretion of the hearing body, whether that's the director's hearing or the planning commission or ultimately city council. There are several projects that are being proposed, data centers that are being proposed in downtown San Jose, and data centers are not a zone to be allowed use in San Jose. Those are going to go to city council, and ultimately it will be up to city council to decide whether or not they're okay with that.
Well, of course, but I'm just saying the pressure is there to approve. One other quick question, then I'll hand it over to someone else. This is very simple. The implementation agreement with PG&E, Is that on the San Jose website? And if so, where is it?
Yes, it is available on the city's website. It is on, if you go to the SJ Economy website, that's the Office of Economic Development website. There is a link under what we do that is around energy. If you can't find it, you can email me and I'll send you the link to it. But yes, one of the wonderful things about working for government is that most of what we work on is public. So I'm happy to share that with you.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
ChatGPT could probably find it too. Yes.
Anybody else? I'm gonna go to commissioners that have not spoken yet. Macklin?
Just one question to just understand this flow chart. Where in this, so I guess a couple of, where in this flow chart is the review for the water usage of the project? And then
Yeah.
how do you,
Mhm.
like, if this is going through the review, and then if the project needs some approval from the state agency?
Yeah.
Then how does that intervene with this flow chart and how does that flow?
Great questions. So I said I wasn't going to go through the flow chart, but here we are going through the flow chart. I'm glad you guys are interested. So after step 2, after payment and initial routing, then it gets routed to those 5 different divisions that you see there: building, public works, fire, environmental review, and planning. In the environmental review stage, that's where the water supply assessment happens. And so as part of the environmental review, there's a whole bunch of things that are studied as part of the environmental documents. And I urge you again to go to the website with all the projects listed. You can click on any one of those environmental reports and look at the 700-page document. But the water supply assessment happens there. And the water supply assessment is done by the water retailer that for that district. So it could be San Jose Water Company, it could be municipal water, it could be Great Oaks. And that water supply assessment is looking at dry year conditions and wet year conditions to say, is the water that's required for this project, can we serve this project? Now, I also want to add that we are seeing projects that are coming through requesting recycled water. And so in those cases, when they're asking for recycled water, obviously the water supply assessment is going to reflect that different water source. It also would reflect where there's an air-cooled facility. So several of the projects that you'll see on the project list are air-cooled. They use very minimal water. That will also be reflected in the water supply assessment because it's not using potable water as its cooling source. You asked about if it's going to other environmental review bodies. I'm glad you brought this up. So for data centers that have backup generation of 50 megawatts or more, 50 to 99 megawatts, that environmental review is done by the California Energy Commission. And so for data centers that are 50 megawatts or higher, they will sometimes submit the planning application to the city, and it will be in kind of a pending review state while we wait for the California Energy Commission to complete their review of the environmental documents. And then it kind of comes back into the city. And then we become what's called a responsible agency, where we have local authority to review that document and adopt it locally as well.
Go ahead.
I have a more tactical question around the number 5. I'm just a couple of questions. What is the thinking around 1,000 feet from the property boundary, just for my clarification?
Yeah, so all the requirements for the public outreach it's how to actually looking at, it's actually out of council policy. Let me look at it, 6-30. So we will get you that council policy. If there's follow-up questions on that, we'll definitely get somebody from planning, building, and code enforcement to be able to provide more details. They're the ones who own the implementation of the policy, since it's really related. It's called the public outreach policy for pending land use and development proposals. So whether it's data center, large load customer, or any other project, they'll go through that. That includes the 1,000 feet, as well as different criteria depending on whether it's what they call a very small, standard, large, or a project of significant community interest. And it includes elements like what the radius should be, right? 300, 500, 1,000 for the larger projects. what the notification will be, website, email, postcard, site display, whether community meetings required. So it's a lot of detail. I think the best thing we can do is get you that policy so you can see how planning, building, code enforcement walks through it.
Would that include details on the number 5 public notice mailed? Because I'm actually curious, like what the actual information is in there.
Yes, it includes details on what's going to be on the public outreach. Looking at the policy as we speak right now, and let me not speak to like it's a multi-page policy, so I don't want to get it's 8 pages. So I think the best thing to do would be really to get it to you all, and if there's a follow-up meeting needed with planning, building, code enforcement to get into additional details on public outreach for development projects, I think we can have that separate discussion. But I don't want to speak to their 8-page policy, trying to read it as we're asking questions right now.
Yeah, so
Any commissioners who haven't spoken? I'm going to go last on purpose. Any commissioners who have not spoken yet? Okay, you have the floor again.
yeah, just following up on that, I was looking at the acoustics study for the Equinix SV 10 and 11, and I noticed the modelers actually didn't have noise emission numbers for some of the equipment that was put in there. They had to take guesses, basically. So there's some risk in the modeling. So my question is, if you guys approve, for example, noise for a data center, and after it's built and up and running, it's found that they're actually exceeding the ordinances, what happens? Do you force them
So-
to take mitigation measures? Or?
Yeah, so I do not work in planning, building, code enforcement. So, but my understanding is that if there are concerns that any development is operating outside of the bounds of what they were required to be, you can let the city know. You can send a note to, is it BBC?
Yeah.
It'd be code.
To code enforcement and let them know, and then they can investigate that.
Right. The question, I mean, following up on Karen's question, the question is, are you guys, if because they couldn't model because they really didn't have the numbers in the first place, but if it's exceeding the ordinance, I would think you guys have to force them to dial back, take mitigations. Reasonable request, right? Noise is something that the city has total control over.
Yeah,
and
so
should be able to remedy.
So any project that's exceeding its permit requirements would go through a code enforcement process, and there's different actions code enforcement would take with regards to being within permit conditions, and that would be applicable to any project.
Okay. Second question, we talked about behind the meter fuel cells and diesel. Actually, I'm pleased to see the 50-hour limit on diesel usage per year. That's, I think, a reasonable measure, and I guess that comes from the air district, right? Are there any other emitting, other than fuel cells and the diesel gens, are there any other expectation of any other emitting sources behind the meter?
Not that I'm aware of now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Monty, go ahead.
Yeah, I have 2 very, very quick questions. One of them is, so the staff time and other like administrative costs associated with the planning and processing of the transmission upgrades from South San Jose that we were talking about, those are part of the same transmission network upgrade costs in the utility structure, right?
Sorry, are you talking about city staff time or CAISO staff?
City staff, because I understand PG&E is funding the city staff.
Yeah, right. So a little bit of mix up on some of those things. So for the CAISO projects, those are bid to a contractor. So let's take LS Power, for example. So LS Power has permits that they pull with the city for things like being in our public right of way when they have to put a new transmission line in. Those permits come with a cost, and that cost covers staff time. And by the way, PG&E is not putting in those transmission lines.
And then lastly, I know this part of the challenge here that it's unclear exactly how many data centers will be in the pipeline, but just as like a ballpark figure or range, what percentage of the new transmission capacity from those projects are we expecting to be from data centers versus other uses?
Yeah, we don't have a percent that we can say. I think what's important to note is when we're saying there's 2,000 megawatts of transmission capacity being built for the South Bay, that is not 2,000 megawatts of transmission capacity to San Jose. I always tell any member that transmission capacity is not committed to anyone. It's first come, first served. And right across the way in the city of Santa Clara, they're going to an expansion plan to double in size the size of their utility. And there's plans in place where they could even grow beyond that. So depending on, because I can't foresee what other projects will do and what San Jose will do, we could go back and look at the transmission planning process to see if there's a breakdown of what the growth they anticipate in the entire area. But it really, that transmission capacity is for the entire South Bay. And it could be Sunnyvale, it could be Fremont, it could be Santa Clara, it could be San Jose. So how that spreads is to be determined depending on when projects get built.
Thank you. I have a couple of last comments, but I'll save that for after public comments so that we don't delay people any further.
Okay, thank you. If no other commissioners have questions, okay, go ahead. I have questions.
Procedural, non-procedural. How many, is there an estimate of the, was it page 5? That listing A1 through. Is there a listing the number of megawatts that adds up to? No.
No.
I'm assuming it's well over half a gig.
I
No
can't.
comment. Is that because you can't tell us because it's confidential?
correct.
Why is it confidential?
Utility data is confidential data. It's protected data, and we can't disclose it. Utilities can't disclose it. San Jose Clean Energy cannot disclose that data.
Seems like an issue, to be honest.
You can take
but
it up
that's
with the state.
yeah, that's not you guys. That's bigger than
Okay.
this.
One last bit is procedural for you. I have questions about cost shift that goes to San Jose Clean Energy.
What are you
about generation? So my concerns.
Glenn, please speak to the microphone.
My concerns I listed here in a supplemental package that was in the information package of the meeting, and that the top concern is to avoid cost shift. We'll hear about that. So I understand San Jose Clean Energy controls generation, but my question is there an assessment of the possibility that we wouldn't avoid cost shift, and ideally, can we actually reduce cost for at least the generation part of the bill for San Jose residents, in the spirit, at least of, for example, what was just achieved in Oregon with the Portland General Electric agreement, reducing rates a couple % for the ratepayer.
I'm not familiar with that agreement, but is the question for San Jose Clean Energy? Because I can ask them to come up. and
Yeah, it's basically
answer that question.
Is this on? Zach Strike, I'm Assistant Director in the Energy Department, which operates San Jose Clean Energy. I actually have a few slides to present
Later.
maybe as part of this item, and then sort of gets to that. But the plan is no cost shift. I just want to make sure we're using the same terms. Some would say that if the residents' costs are going down as a result of data centers coming on, that's a cost shift.
well, okay.
Okay.
For non-data center ratepayers.
Yeah, we're
Can we
it's
have-
top of mind, and we there are models to isolate costs and those things. So yeah, that's we will take council direction on that, but it's early days. I mean, maybe it's an answer better given in the context of the couple slides that I have, but
Okay, we'll wait. Okay, thank you.
I just want to clarify something before I was talking about utility data being confidential, and that is true unless it is being disclosed. And in the cases of the projects that are on our webpage, those have been disclosed. And so where you'll see the megawatt load for those, that has been provided by the applicant and is obviously disclosed. But the city can't disclose it unless the applicant discloses it.
Thank you. I have a couple questions before I move on to public comments. The proposed electric rule 30, is that a city council? Is that proposed by the city council? Is it who has the jurisdiction to vote and
No.
decide on that?
That is the California Public Utilities Commission.
Just a quick note on that as well, that want to be sure so that applies to all territory, not just the city of San Jose. I want to make sure it's clear for everybody.
Okay. And one more one more, I guess, legal question. Who is the notification for 1,000 feet, the 1,000 feet limit? Is that did you say that is a city policy?
That's correct. That's a city council policy. And as I mentioned, as part of the data center standard, city council asked us to go back and look at the outreach policy and see if there's any enhancements or modifications we would propose.
Yeah, given the interest from the public, as you can see, that 1,000 feet might be too small, is my personal opinion, but I will defer to the public on this one. The public, you now have the opportunity to speak. Every public member has 2 minutes. And to that end, if you could come up to the microphone and line up, and one at a time. And I will actually, unfortunately, have to be fairly strict on this given the time. I was actually timing the commissioners as well on the side. Nobody spoke more than 2 minutes though. So any public members who would like to speak at this moment, please come up to the mic. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. First, thank you so much for having this meeting. I am so proud of every member of this commission for having this meeting, and this discussion is a lot more than I have seen in council, and I received a lot of information. I would also say, in terms of practical things that we can do, a council policy is a majority vote of the council. It can be changed during a council meeting. And so that is something that we can advocate for, because clearly air pollution will not stay within 1,000 feet. This is a massive project with massive implications. We live in a constant inversion, daily inversion, where the heat traps the pollution, and this is the valley, this is our geography. And so I think we need to increase that by 1,000 feet. And in terms of other emitting backup generators, there is the Microsoft project that is approved in El Viso, and they have 224 natural gas generators permitted to run 509 hours each. That's over 100,000 hours a year for that one project in Microsoft. That's not a part of the 12. And so then when we look at Prologis and we look at other data centers, what is the cumulative impact? And when we talk about outdated policies, the 1,000 feet is an example of outdated policies. So generative AI data centers are new because of their scale. And this shows that not only is the council policy outdated, but our state, our energy, our water. I was just at a water district meeting, and they were saying that they rely on water utilities to give them the numbers of how much data centers are using. So they don't actually have it unless it's disclosed to them. And another thing is there is a lot of applications, and then they will put the water usage on the application. But there's a study by Santa Clara University that said that after the data center is operational, they don't actually have the numbers of how much water they're actually using. And so California, we're operating under very outdated things. And as a commission, there's a lot that you can do, even if you're just an advisory commission. So please use all of your powers. Thank you.
Thank you, resident.
I'm a member of District 2. My home is just a walk away from the proposed Prologis 99 megawatt data center site. That's enough to power 66,000 homes on average annually. I'd like to state that this proposal is appalling to be so close to multiple neighborhoods, not just mine, as it's also beside a very active hiking trail and a protective grove of oak trees. I am against it. We've already seen how other neighborhoods within the city of San Jose across this country have been affected by noise pollution, rising temperatures that persist within 30-mile radiuses, and power grid strain. The city has stated it'd like to be the world capital for data centers. I find this to be reckless. We are currently lacking the infrastructure to make this market sustainable to coexist beside community hubs. This location is one of many, creating the topic of the AI economy. It excludes our residents. It is reported by America's largest utility that Americans can be experiencing blackouts by next year due to rising energy demands. A local population only represents a small fraction of the users that would benefit from the facility, yet we face the burdens of living next to it. The design, interconnection costs, and infrastructure funding plan are often left undefined. Taking a company's words are not sufficient. Once these are approved and built, we the people are left to indirectly foot the bill for increased power consumption through higher rates and grid upgrades costs for one massive consumer. For example, in the state of Virginia, regulators had to create a special large load class specifically for these data centers because of the high rate cost allocation complaints. Promises of renewable power cannot guarantee on site when renewables are not meeting demand. They rely on grid power, such as with diesel backup generators or other fossil fuels bringing emissions, heat, noise, and impact our air quality surrounding the area. For example, in Memphis, Tennessee, XAI reportedly needed to add 35 methane gas turbines totaling to 422 megawatts. Reuters reported environmental groups have said that they would become the largest polluter within the area. These can cause acid rain. We are by a park. There are children here. Please consider any of your powers to help.
Thank you, resident.
Hello, my name is Dashiell Leeds. I'm Conservation Coordinator for the Sierra Club Loma Prieta chapter and District 3 resident. I want to chat a little bit about the public outreach process and I think where that has fallen short historically. So on the website, we have seen that there's 11 large load projects on there, but we know as of the April 21st City Council meeting that there's 34 projects, data center projects in the city's development pipeline process. So there's a lot that happens before these projects even reach the website. And by the time a project has reached the website, a lot has already been baked in. So for example, the Prologis development proposal north of Highway 237, south of the regional wastewater treatment facility, adjacent to the Alviso community and the protected burrowing owl habitat. That isn't on the website because it hasn't reached that stage yet, but the city has already authorized the city manager's office to negotiate and execute a development agreement with Prologis regarding that site. And the Alviso community members were not consulted regarding this process. They're not given a seat at the table in this negotiation of the development agreement. So by the time that agreement is executed, the damage has basically been done. The community will have already been left out. So by the time the project reaches the website, it's already too late. And just regarding the overall timeline of the standards and how that relates to, like the Prologis project as an example, that ongoing negotiation and execution process should actually be paused right now to allow time for the city to complete its standards, because it makes no sense to go out and negotiate a development agreement while we haven't finalized our standards that we'd like to hold the developers to. So we should really be pausing all of our internal work on data centers while these standards are ongoing. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, resident.
Hello, my name is Serena. I'm a resident of District 6 in Willow Glen. But I also wanted to talk about the Alviso data center. The burrowing owls, which are Western burrowing owls, are a locally threatened species, but also like a state threatened species, and actually all over the world. Burrowing owls are a migratory species, but our burrowing owls here in San Jose, they used to be about 8 burrowing owls or under 10, and now we've gotten this population up to over 80 babies this year, which is really, really impressive. But the data center is right next door, within 1,000 feet. The burrowing owls weren't asked, and whether they wanted a data center. But the other concern that I have about this area is that it's within the area that like projected sea levels will rise into, which is really concerning to me. It doesn't seem to be something that people are considering, as well as other data centers within these like coastal areas. Even though we've, built into this area, doesn't mean necessarily that it's not going to flood. And one other thing I wanted to say, I'm a member of a local organization called San Jose Against War. We advocate against, we advocate against war. And the data center, the one in Alviso is funding, is for Microsoft. Microsoft uses their AI and cloud to assist with the genocidal actions of the Israeli government. against Palestine. So just think that San Jose community members don't support these actions and don't want this happening in their community. So thank you.
Thank you, resident.
Hello, my name is Mila. I'm in San Jose. Present input. I think that's something that needs to be carried through. I echo other community members throughout this process to a greater extent than has happened so far.
Could you speak up a little bit?
Yes. So a 2025 report led by researchers from UC Riverside found that between 2019 and 2023, before some of the most recent surges in AI use, carbon emissions from data centers in California increased by 96.4%. And they stated that even as the grid becomes cleaner, data center operations are making up an ever larger portion of the state's total emissions. I also want to note that natural gas generators do still release emissions. One of the that I've just seen on this city website dashboard of the approved projects has 224 natural gas backup generators. And considering that San Jose Clean Energy has made very meaningful steps to help homes to disconnect from natural gas power, the impacts that these would have on surrounding communities don't seem like a step in the right direction. And that project also includes 2 administrative diesel generators. So I want our city to consider both the local cost to communities of these proposed data centers, the global costs through their impacts on our achievement of our essential climate goals, and to carry through transparency throughout this process. Thank you.
Thank you, resident. I'm gonna, before the next resident speaks, I want to remind everybody that per city rule, unfortunately, online comments are not allowed. Only those present in person are given the floor to speak. So for those of you who are watching this online, we unfortunately cannot yield the time to anybody online. With that, next resident.
Thank you. My name is Lisa, and I'm with Mothers Out Front, as well as the San Jose team of the California Donut Economics Coalition. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for the presentation. And thank you to the Climate Advisory Commission for requesting this presentation, because until today, we haven't, as a community, received the input that we need to receive. The city may want to be the capital of data centers, but the residents may not. And it's up to the residents to make that decision. So we have heard recently, the most recent reports of New York State putting a pause on data center development. And this pause is to get the input from the community, as well as to get input from experts who don't have an interest in it. And we need to do the same. We need to get the input from the community. We can't expect the community, our elders, or people who don't use the internet, to be on them to look at your website, to be able to know whether or not they have to fight against the data center or be able to give their voice. So that's the most important thing, that we need to get the input of the community. We also know that this type of data centers have the capacity to negatively impact our communities and our climate goals. And we need to understand how our data centers affecting our climate goals. Does this information already exist? And if not, we need to do it, and we need to make our decisions based on this information. It's more important that we do this right rather than fast. So we need to get the community input. Thank you.
Thank you, resident.
Hi, Jordan Moldau again. I agree with everything that's been said so far. I'd also like to call out there's a difference between things that the city must do versus things that the city should want to do. The residents have asked for a cumulative environmental study. Maybe the city doesn't have to do that, but they should do it anyway. Hopefully council will ask. They haven't so far. staff should say, hey, we've heard from the residents that this is important for our work to be above board. We're requesting the funding to do the cumulative EIR. State law doesn't allow certain types of disclosure. You know, we have an IGR team. We should advocate to the state legislature to change the law, not just say, oh, not our responsibility. So staff should ask to put it in the IGR work plan for next year that we want certain changes to state law to make all of this stuff more transparent to the resident. There was talk of air cooling, not using water. It still dumps heat into the environment, which is still a negative impact to the surrounding. So it's not just water usage that we need to study. It's also the heat island effect and heat domes and all of that. And yes, we will get some revenue. I think folks have presented evidence that maybe the revenue numbers are not what is stated. But we also need to understand cost of mitigation. The whole reason we're in this climate catastrophe is because we took shortcuts. People made a lot of money. Now we have to spend 100 times that money to fix the problem. So we shouldn't just be blinded by dollar signs saying, oh, we'll get $10 million in the general fund every year. If 20 years from now, we're going to have to spend $100 million from the general fund to fix the problem. So we really need to have a clear understanding of the cumulative impacts. Thank you.
Thank you, resident.
Hi, I'm Linda Hutchins Knowles, the co-founder of Mothers Out Front Silicon Valley and a District 9 resident. I want to reiterate and just name like one word from each of the 6 requests. I don't have time to read the whole letter, but we are requesting a pause on new data centers, public dashboard, field of environmental analysis, quantitative thresholds, accessible participation of local communities, and prohibiting the city staff, council members, and mayor from signing non-disclosure agreements with data center developers. We support all those, and we want to add a 7th regarding water quality. It's not enough to just look at water use, but water quality. Even in a closed loop system, the water eventually gets discharged. And this water is heavily contaminated. They often have chemical additives to prevent corrosion, scaling, and growth of algae and bacteria, including biocides, chlorine compounds, glycols, and so forth. PFAS, refrigerants, forever chemicals. These are really concerning. And when I asked a question of a member of the water district, they had no idea if this is being monitored or followed. So I think any standards that the city develops should include both projected water use, actual water use, and the impact on our water quality, and what is the plan to mitigate that. We're looking at federal clean water standards that could be violated here, which would cost the city a lot of money to remediate. And finally, I want to emphasize the importance of the public engagement process. These guardrails should not be written by the city manager. These guardrails should be written by the public. They are to protect the public. And we would appreciate the commission making a recommendation to the council that they direct the city manager to involve a process that the public approves the process. We're talking about procedural equity, not just the results, but the public needs to approve the process. And waiting until December is too late. There should be a pause on any more data center pipelines until the guardrails are in place. Please also make sure you coordinate with the Santa Clara Valley Water District, San Jose Water, Great Oaks Water Company, San Jose Municipal Water System. Any other companies or agencies should be involved in this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, resident.
My name is Yvonne Kwan, resident District 1, and I wanted to just reiterate what others have said. So ditto for that, but also it was said that council has been asking for suggestions regarding the public hearing process or the public virtual committee meeting process. And I would love for you all to define what community interest means. Define what virtual community meeting means. Are these just perfunctory checkboxes that we meet? Where does the information go? How does that information actually get shared with the folks who are in positions to make change? And instead of just collecting that information and go, okay, we heard them. What if there is public outcry? How do we define public outcry, right? So there's a lot of these things that, again, should not be defined by the city itself, but by the residents who are impacted by this. And then just to reiterate what one person said earlier about the 1,000-foot pollution, definitely we know, we've seen in this area the fires that have happened, right? And pollution is not going to be just bound within 1,000 feet, right? The airs flow, all of that. And also with the Equinox project, I don't know if we remember the 2018 floods of Coyote Creek. It's just right there. And San Jose has dedicated an improvement project, but it ends around Tully. So what's going to happen? I'm just saying climate catastrophe, right? With potential floods that are happening, the El Nino is coming in strong, right? So those are probably in the EIR, but with what we know about climate catastrophe, I just don't want to bet our communities and our environment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, resident.
Hi, my name is Riley. I didn't honestly plan on coming up here, but I feel like it's very important to discuss or acknowledge that there are revenue benefits for the data centers, but we should also acknowledge that there are other ways that are more climate friendly and more acceptable for our community that also includes increased city revenue. Ways that we can increase city revenue that do not include data centers and in fact do improve the environment and our cultural community in San Jose include focusing on local infrastructure and education and including community building and just in general focusing on urban planning within our cities. That way we can increase how people connect and a community that is created within San Jose that is something that people outside of San Jose might admire and might come to visit, which would increase tourists, which are already extremely popular in California. But we in San Jose don't have as many tourists as beachfront cities do. So increasing sort of tourist revenue and focusing on our social interactions rather than data centers, which, as we know, hurt the environment, as many other people already said. We can benefit San Jose and benefit and increase our city revenue without creating public outrage and without hurting our environment. Thank you.
Thank you, resident.
Hi, I'm Bob Ruff, 50-year San Jose resident. And I have a couple observations or questions, but I'm concerned on how the data centers fit into the urban core and adjacent to our neighborhoods. I used to be a city planner here at the city, working for the city, and we had design guidelines that prevented the construction of blank walls anymore in the downtown. A few of the older buildings have blank walls, especially at the ground level. They should always be activated. I'm afraid that these data centers in the core might become 11, one of them's proposed for 11 stories. And I'm afraid that in the process of making them unblank, the city's going to allow graphics or electronic billboards or something of that, sort of becoming like I hate to say it, but Blade Runner kind of city in the future with all the advertisements and videos. And the city's already got 3 of these downtown on the public buildings, DPA and parking. That should not occur. So design guidelines should be enforced. Second of all the costs for these data centers, the city needs to do everything possible, make sure that none of the costs, including hidden costs, transmission costs, are given to the residential areas of the city. They have to stay with the developer. Okay.
Thank you, resident. Okay, seeing no more public comment queued up, do we have any item to vote on? Did you say mine? Money, do you have a?
Yes, I have a letter related to this item, but it could also wait to be discussed by the commissioners until after we hear from San Jose Clean Energy, because that could better inform a full decision on it.
Okay, sounds good. Let's move on to attachment D, part 2. Who might be the speaker for this? Oh, is it Zach? Cool. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Again, I'm Zach Strike. I'm the Assistant Director in the Energy Department, which operates San Jose Clean Energy. Just a couple of slides about our portion of what's going on related to large load. Next slide, please. As a quick reminder, we are the electricity generation provider for the city. That means that we procure and decide which sources of power are going to be used. So that's us there on the left, and then that power is delivered into the large high voltage grid, and then down to the more local grid at PG&E, and then ultimately the customer. So we are the generation source. Next slide. We are, by law, state law, we are the default generation service provider for all new customers. People can opt out at any time. That's a crucial part of the community choice structure. We get new customer application information from PG&E. That's part of this Rule 30 process that Erica mentioned earlier. We're in very good coordination with Erica and the team, as well as the other departments in the city on what's going on. She just stepped through what's being kept track of. As she said, the projects will be less than 100 megawatts realistically in California, and we're having these conversations. So I would say nothing is taking us by surprise. I want to just make that clear that we're actively seeing what's coming. That said, and well, as part of that, the second to the bottom bullet, it's really important. Something we're spending a lot of time on is how fast this isn't happening. So I think that there is there's been a lot of learning that every piece of paper, every application, every interconnection agreement that PG&E signs with the customer does not mean that that's necessarily coming. And it does not mean that it's coming at the time when the developer says they're going to build it. And it's important that we have rational forecasts about what's coming to the grid and to our area, because a lot of decisions get made based on those forecasts. And sometimes procurement obligations are assigned to all of the load serving entities like PG&E, like us, and those aren't free. And if the load doesn't come that those assignments were based on, doesn't matter. And our customers still have to pay for the things that we bought. So we've really been spending a lot of time on making those load forecasts realistic. Last bullet there. So it may be appropriate to have a different rate schedule, or tariff is the word. I know, not that kind of tariff. A load rates for large customers. That may make sense. There's a lot going on in the legislature right now, which we're going to hear about later tonight, which will sort of point us in the direction that we should go, probably. So, but we will, as appropriate, recommend those sorts of rate structures to council. Next slide. So what might those look like? Those would be designed to avoid shifting costs to other customer classes. Yes, they would. We would have standard collateral provisions, and we would have protections built into that tariff to make sure that any commitments that we made on behalf of customers, that we were made whole, our customer base was made whole, not worse off if that customer did leave. We would make sure that we were minimizing the commitments that we were making, unless we had, because right now, as I said at the beginning, we're month to month. Any customer can drop us at any time. And so with that framework, these are really large customers, and so we don't want to make commitments unless we have a similar sort of commitment from the customer. It's possible that we would offer something in that same vein of not making commitments, offering customers the opportunity to just take wholesale energy. So that would just be a pass through from us. So therefore we're not buying ahead based on that customer. That could be a nice solution where customers are just paying where did the price settle that day, each hour of the day. It's an option. We're thinking about it. Other utilities, we wouldn't be the first one to ever do such a thing. A lot of these large data center customers you've heard about are signing, they're making their own agreements with their own power purchase agreements with solar power plants, wind power plants and things. We would be happy to potentially to sleeve those, we say. So pass that through and utilize the energy on their behalf. Here, that could really be a win-win. That is cleverly now being called the Beyonce, the bring your own new clean energy. Additionally, other environmental options to help customers. So for example, if a customer had ambition to have hourly renewables, well, okay, maybe we could make we could design a product and price it accordingly for them, including all of the staff time to monitor and do all that stuff. So that kind of thing could be possible too, and could be a chance to go even further for those customers that wanted to do so. I think that's my last slide, right?
Zach, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
You know, you talked about different options for energy costs related to the large load customers. If you chose a path for how—
Karen, actually, could you please speak into the mic? Could you please speak into the mic so that everybody can hear?
Sorry about that. Could you, can you change, if you set a standard, an approach, a policy for the large load customers related to energy costs, but then you found it wasn't working, do you have agreements with each of those large load customers about how that cost structure would work for them? Or is it a standard that once you changed, decided a different approach was valid, that you could insist that all the large load data customers followed that new approach?
So if any new non-standard, sort of any new large load tariff is created, right, we decide to bring that forward. Right now, I think that we would try to, as much as possible, have that be standardized. And that is to say, so anyone who, let's pick a number, anyone who is 20 megawatts and above, this tariff would apply. And they might have a couple choices within that tariff, but that would be, in effect, and that might get revised each year. And there would be, and that would be sort of the most basic thing. But even though some of these are a little bit different, and if customers wanted to do a longer term agreement with us, that would be a separate negotiated agreement, multi-year. If they wanted to do a 10-year thing, if they said, hey, we want only long-term renewable energy. Well, okay, great. I can go buy you long-term renewable energy, but you're going to need to commit to me long-term for the period of that PPA, at least 10 years, something like that. So that would be a separate agreement. But generally our idea is, as part of our annual rate setting process, like we do now, that we would refresh those basic rates as well.
Okay, thanks.
But just to clarify, as the rules currently stand, customers could say, oh, based on a new refresh, well, I don't like that anymore. I'm going to opt out and go to PG&E. So just to remind how it all works.
Thank you. Any commissioner comments? I see Glenn's hand first.
Thanks, Zach. A couple questions. Going back to the cost shift, are you forbidden from basically forcing data centers to pay more in order to provide benefit and reduce costs for other ratepayers?
So Prop 26 requires that basically customers are charged what it costs to serve them. And cost to serve them can include contributions to reserves and things like that. But essentially, customers should be charged what it costs to serve them.
Okay. So, okay. Question about the commitments. We've talked, there's always been talk about 10-year, 15-year, 20-year. Do you think 10-year commitment is sufficient to cover sunk costs for San Jose?
Generally, yes. I think a little bit longer could be better, but I think if particularly imagining that not everyone is going to sign up on day one, that if we have, if it's 10 years, that there will be enough of a sort of laddering of these commitments, these 10-year commitments, that we should be able to stagger things and get other people to pick it up if somebody leaves. Yeah.
Okay. One other question. So I've been trying to wrap my head around this sleeve PPA sort of popularity or usage in California and for San Jose. Is it rare, non-existent? What's the outlook?
It's in my understanding, I think it's been talked about, but not super common. So Silicon Valley Clean Energy has this is public. They've done this with Google for the Google campus over in their territory, and this is 3, 4, 5 years ago. They announced this sort of thing. And so it's been done and it's been done with the CCA and so that's one data point. I think more will come, but it hasn't been lately. It's been more sort of talk rather than, not too many times.
Okay. But one last one. Yeah. Sorry, I had to step out for a minute there, but maybe you covered this, but do you think, let's say like San Jose miraculously gets all of this 2 gigawatt eventually in the next 10 years or whatever. Do you foresee any problem securing that power? John has expressed frustration about finding available capacity and energy.
I think the market would react, and there would be enough. It would be challenging, but one thing I was said while you were out was that it's all coming slower than you read about. Okay. And so I think we're going to have a little bit more visibility and runway to catch up to some of these commitments. Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead. I'm asking you to just sort of take a leap of potential understanding. Do you have a sense of how many large loads may choose to generate their own power?
So by generate your own power, you mean like on-site fuel cells?
Right.
Or
yeah. What I'm worried about is with that potential generation, it could be using diesel. Although I think there are some city rules around that, but it could mean less likely use of renewable energy. That's sort of where I'm going with.
So we ask in our conversations, and I can't reveal confidences, but it doesn't seem super popular.
Well, gas turbines. I mean, public comment was mentioned gas turbine use, but Erica said it wasn't. She wasn't expecting that.
I haven't heard anybody talk that way.
Okay, I assume the Air District would not.
I also assume
approve that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, that's not our jurisdiction. But I would also assume.
What's going on in Texas, Indiana, whatever, it's not going to happen here. Right. Okay.
Backwin?
So here in the other slide, you have the line saying we are in active discussions with a number of project developers. So I'm assuming that means like when they're still in the permitting process, or like in the process of just starting to think about the project. So do you communicate the tariffs and what their costs are going to be at that stage, or like?
So, I mean, we share, rates so far are set annually by the council. So I can't tell them what their costs are going to be. I can tell them what their costs would be today, right? On our half of the bill.
I see.
So we have that conversation. So, hey, last year blended based on a certain usage, here's your blended, cost of power. We talk about that. And we talk about how we're looking at some large tariff things and it might look like this. And and we understand that, probably we'll go, if, depending on how things go in the legislation, we'll approach council next year, like this kind of thing.
Okay.
And we're talking to them at all stages, like when they're early stage, when they're middle stage, when they're about to flip the switch. We're talking to a various set of customers. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Do we want these customers? This year, we're losing money on every cent. I believe our rates are below our cost of adding load, depletes the reserves faster. Slides indicate that next year is likely to be a similar situation. Why not let them just be served by PG? What do we get out of serving them ourselves?
It's a discussion. I think that is something when we get there, we might point this out to council that today we are losing money serving customers. We are utilizing reserves built up over previous years that we had an excess in serving customers. But it's a long road, and there's some insert sales adage here about how hard is it to get a customer? How easy is it to lose a customer? Once you lose a customer, they might never come back. So the opportunity to serve them do I think that over 20 years we can profitably serve these customers? I do. Might there be a couple years in there where where we're digging into reserves? There might be. But so it's a fair question. And I guess my answer says that generally we think we're going to be able to provide electricity, competitively to them and not lose money doing it.
But in the long term, it requires us to sort of systematically be able to acquire power cheaper. We're going to do that. If their rates are based on their costs and our rates are based on our costs, we're going to make a margin cheaper than we have to somehow beat them consistently over, individual years could come and go, right? But that's essentially the proposition.
Vic, please move closer to the mic.
Yeah, I heard the question, but the Vic said so that essentially is us competing long term is predicated on us providing power cheaper than PG&E. And I would say the three things that we look at that give us confidence in that is that we don't pay taxes, we don't pay shareholders, and sadly for me, we don't pay executives money like PG&E does. So there are some structural cost advantages that we have, and I mean just those things alone could be the difference between that margin that we need there.
PG&E's not able to, well, they can't make a profit on it. They do have higher costs of capital because they pay taxes on their capital, and we don't. But otherwise, seems pretty even.
I don't think I have another response.
Any other comments from commissioners? And before I do that, commissioners, I encourage you, all of you to move the microphone closer. As you can see, I have to be pretty close. I'm luckily pretty loud, but I encourage for public recording purposes, please move your microphone closer to you.
So that was a really interesting point that Victor brought up about potential short-term losses in serving data centers along with all of the other customers in San Jose from San Jose Clean Energy. So if that is the case and that has at least short-term negative impact on the San Jose Clean Energy budget, I could imagine that having effects on other priority items and where that budget is put towards, like decarbonization programs in the city. Data centers, in theory, will be paying their way through paying their fair share in taxes through that utility tax and through property taxes, as was mentioned by the previous staff presenters. So are those taxes, those utility taxes and that general fund revenue from the property taxes, is that something that could be put back in to kind of fill the hole that the data centers are making in the San Jose clean energy budget in the short term?
If I understood you correctly, that would be a transfer from the general fund over to San Jose Clean Energy?
Yes, for programs that could be impacted by budget cuts, like decarbonization programs.
That,
I think just two notes, and I do want to speak to the fact that I think the assumption that is going to be a near-term loss. I think a lot of those projects that we're talking about are not going to be coming in for a number of years. So we're not talking, and I just want to, you can clarify for me if I'm incorrect. We don't want to, because one is they're under construction, and two, it takes a period of time for them to start from 0 megawatts to whatever the maximum megawatts are. So there's a period of time. On your specific question, any general fund funding, that's ultimately a council policy decision. Obviously, as a staff, and you could make recommendations for, for the council, staff will look at the overall budget, but certainly that would be competing against all general fund services, libraries, park, police, fire. But ultimately, that would be a council policy decision of how those general fund revenues, like any general fund revenues, are used.
right. So Manuel, would you say it's fair to say there's no, to your knowledge, there's no prohibition from the council doing such a thing? I will say it can't go the other way, right? The funds from San Jose Clean Energy cannot move into the general fund.
Thank you. I think that's sort of doubly worrisome to anyone working on climate in the city of San Jose, because these are projects that have the potential to have a very large climate impact. And at the same time, at least in the short term, if that period of time, say when it's brought online from 5 to 10 years from now, if that is still operating at a loss from the San Jose Clean Energy budget, then that could negatively impact our ability to fund decarbonization programs through San Jose Clean Energy that the rest of the general fund, that would probably not be a high priority for.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for council, which sets the rates annually, but I think it would be surprising to me if council were to set rates such that San Jose Clean Energy was operating at a loss for more than a couple of years in a row. At some point, we'd want to sort of, okay, it's time to cover our costs. And so I wouldn't imagine a 5 to 10 years of losing money like you're talking about.
Yeah, and just want to note on general fund question, as all of you know, and I think a lot of people in the audience know, we did have a general fund deficit that we had to work through this year. We have a general fund deficit that we have to work through next year as well. So there are existing general fund needs. So while that would be an option, we're already working under a general fund deficit environment with the city.
Thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners? Seeing none at this time, and I'm allowed to take public comment. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, quick question. So my understanding from our previous correspondences at these meetings is that for the past 1 to 2 years, it's been challenging for San Jose Clean Energy to secure new renewable generation capacity at an affordable price. Is that right?
I will say, yes, prices are going up.
So in that case, in the timeline that we're projecting to have these data centers brought online and be in need of that new generation, not just the transmission, which I know is being largely handled by those projects that we were discussing earlier, the generation part, do we feel confident that we can handle the increased generation demand from renewable sources in a way that will be affordable both to the data centers themselves, to the other customers who are participating in San Jose Clean Energy? And then if a situation were to come up where that was not the case, where it was not feasible to do that, would San Jose Clean Energy be working closely with the planning department to make that clear and to not promote or approve data centers if there is not the capacity to secure enough renewable energy for them?
the approval of the, I mean, there's nothing in the planning permit, related to San Jose's clean energy's ability to do anything. I mean, that's the short answer to that. So our ability to, what we see in energy and all those things, that's an independent path from, if they're allowed to build there. Can you repeat the first part of your question?
Yeah, just in the timeline that the data centers are projected to be brought online, is there confidence that San Jose Clean Energy that will be able to source enough renewable generation to support all of those?
There is, I think affordable. That's I'm not going to try to define that word today. And are we affordable now? But I think the price, as I said, might be a little higher. I think the PG&E is also out there getting these new higher prices. So I think our ability to compete will be similar.
Thank you. I think it's very important. These data centers, each development has a huge variety of impacts on all levels. So I think it's very important that San Jose Clean Energy is in communication with the planning department, because if everything else checks out, but their energy use does not check out, and it would not be able to be served by renewable capacity, I think that would be a real problem that it would be worthwhile for the planning department to take into consideration.
Noted. I will pass that along. Something I want to, I realize that we haven't made clear. So for data centers, 50 to 99 megawatts who are applying, as Erica described, through the California Energy Commission for their small power plant exemption because of all the diesel backup that they have. One of the conditions that approvals that have come down with that small power plant exemption is a condition that the data center providers are served with 100% carbon-free energy, whether that's from us, direct access, or PG&E. And so hopefully that gives comfort that for those customers in that category, that they need to find electricity in that category of that. Yeah. So that's in the EIR, the environmental impact report, online for those, for example, the Microsoft project. So that's their stack, that's their, so.
Zach, following up on that, if a data center runs its backup generators, does it need tons through the CARB program, cap and trade, or are they below the thresholds?
I don't know. I will try to get an answer for you.
I guess it probably depends on their size, but those tons are actually capped and aren't emitted if they are covered by the cap, because they have to come from somewhere within a total limit.
Right.
It's a musical chairs game, not creating new chairs, creating new seats.
Yeah, I'll try to find that out.
Sort of related to this question. So the state, we have the RPS standards. We also, in the IRP process, there's also emission goals. You see, I heard there was some talk about slipping on the emission goals. Have you heard anything about that?
Whose emission goals?
In the IRP process, right? We have the 38 and 30 million megaton portfolio targets.
Are you talking about the state's emission goals or San Jose Clean Energy?
State, no, statewide.
I have not heard that.
Okay.
But it may.
Wouldn't be surprising. Yeah, okay. I thought, okay.
I'm going to prioritize commissioners who have not spoken yet. Any other comments and questions from commissioners who have not spoken yet? Okay, Money, do you have
Just a very quick clarifying question that through the state program of the small power plant exemption that you just talked about, requiring 100% carbon-free electricity. So does that mean a data center comes in, all of the data centers between 50 and 99 megawatts that are proposed would have to source their electricity from 100% carbon-free sources, whatever the provider is?
That's what their permit says. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, we are able to take public comments once again for 2 minutes. And this time, please, but however, it does have to be about the rates here as discussed by Zach. So if anybody has a comment, please come up to the mic and form a single file line. Thank you. Go ahead.
Jordan Moldau again. I think piecing together things that I've heard from a couple different commissioners, I think it seems clear that the large load customers can impact the ratepayers negatively. As Monty put it, we might have to raise prices. If we're operating at a loss, the more energy you sell, the more total loss we're accumulating, which means the greater pressure that there's going to be to raise rates for everyone. So I think it's pretty important to figure out a way to make sure that we're not selling the energy at a loss to large load providers, whether that be through the tariff mechanism or some other mechanism. I'm not really familiar with all the mechanisms available at our disposal, but some way to make sure that we're at least selling energy to them at cost. And if that requires changes to state law to allow that to happen, then again, we should be advocating for that fiercely to make sure that we're not putting pressure on the ratepayers, or we're not putting pressure on the general fund to make up for whatever losses are happening in the account. So we should figure out how to accomplish that. And then as for the last slide that was most recently up on the screen, I don't know if that was just something that was for the Climate Advisory Commission or if that's actually something that you're going to be using publicly. I'd ask you to strongly reconsider using someone's name and likeness unless you've gotten her permission to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Resident.
Hello. Thank you, Zach, for this presentation to kind of support the information that we've already received. And I just wanted to add and make sure that everybody understands that it was a community effort and a community-based organization effort that brought San Jose Clean Energy to our community with the focus of helping us to meet our climate goals and reducing emissions. And really where we're at with our climate goals right now, unfortunately, we're not meeting a lot of those goals, but through our San Jose Clean Energy, that was where we were having the most success. So we really do need to make sure that any of these anticipated changes are looked at in a way so that we make sure that we are continuing to do well in meeting our climate goals. And since I only am allowed the 2 minutes as a member of the public to make my comments and cannot engage in a conversation, I urge the commission to ask that we get this information so that we find out as data centers come on, how is that impacting San Jose Clean Energy's ability to help us to meet our climate goals. And then also just on the level of the consumer, it's very unclear how our fees come about and explaining our fees. And I just realized my most recent bill, my transmission costs were almost 3 times as much as my energy use costs. And I don't know where that's coming from. I don't know if that's from this current, the new work that's being done, the new transmission lines, or if it's unclear. So I really encourage that the community be able to, the ratepayers be able to better understand their bills as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Resident.
Hello, Linda Hutchins Knowles with Mothers Out Front. I just want to make 2 points, echoing what Lisa just said, that the purpose of San Jose Clean Energy, the reason why the community worked so hard to adopt it, and Mothers Out Front was one of the groups that did that, and many other groups, was for our climate. That was the purpose, was to protect our climate. It wasn't to raise revenue for the city. It was to protect our climate. And I think that needs to be front and center. And also I'm remembering that in September, the city council decided not to adopt a REACH code. It was the first time in my memory that the city council declined to adopt a proposal from staff protecting our environment. So we had a long string of great climate action and then it paused. And one reason why is that the council did not feel confident that this SJCE had enough funding to cover the incremental extra cost of putting in heat pumps versus furnaces or air conditioning. And I'm really wanting to make sure that we have enough funding that the next time the REACH code comes to the council, that their San Jose Clean Energy can say with confidence, we have enough money to make whole residents for whom the incremental cost is cost prohibitive. Because once they do install a heat pump, they are going to have the cost savings in a few years. But if they need that help in the meantime, the city should be helping. So I just want to speak up again for the need. Data centers are going to impact San Jose Clean Energy. So decisions need to be made in light of protecting the original mission of San Jose Clean Energy and helping us transition off of fossil fuels as quickly as possible. One last point I want to make about transparency is when the agenda says something like large load entities, the public doesn't understand that that's data centers. And that feels like kind of obfuscation and kind of hiding from the public that we're talking about data centers. And I would like to see that the terminology be changed in all the city council, commissions, rules committees, wherever it's being discussed, that it be named data centers. Thank you.
Thank you, resident.
Hello, Dasha Leeds again, Conservation Coordinator for the Sierra Club Loma Prieta Chapter, D3 resident. I'll be really brief. I just want to express concern about the potential impacts of data centers on SJCE, and the fact that those could compete with our climate programs is extremely alarming, considering that the city is already not meeting our climate targets, and we're basically backsliding on our commitments. So I just want to express concern, and if the city does want to move forward with its data center plans, it really should have a full understanding of the impacts on ratepayers and the impacts on our other climate programs and policies. Thanks.
Thank you, resident.
Hello again. I am just briefly wanting to echo what others have said about the original purpose of establishing San Jose Clean Energy. My concern for our city's stalling and backsliding on progress towards our 2030 climate goals. And lastly, I encourage the commission to better understand the requirements on renewable clean energy generation for data center large load projects that don't meet the 50 megawatt threshold, and the potential for smaller projects to be chained together to avoid that threshold while providing larger capacity. I think the commission should understand that. Thank you.
Thank you, resident. Okay. At this point, we would like to move on to Monty. You said you have a draft of you would like to discuss, or?
Yes, I do. It is at the end of the agenda packet. And I just want to kind of try and summarize a lot of what members of the public have said, what some of the concerns of the commissioners have expressed as well, is just a lack of confidence at every level of decision-making in the city government about what we're getting ourselves into. We're not confident that these data centers will have no or limited emissions. We're not confident that these data centers will have low or no air and water pollution. We're not confident that none of their costs will be passed on to other residents and energy users. I think the city should not be promoting these at the fastest speed possible without these areas of confidence, because if any one of them or multiple of them do not work out the way that we're hoping, the cost significantly outweighs the benefits that we are hoping for in these data centers. So that is the mindset, the concerns that I brought into this letter that I wanted to share with the commission and encourage us to adopt and send to the Transportation and Environment Committee, subsequently any other relevant city bodies after that point. I think a lot of the members of the public, their specific concerns and requests are reflected in the letter. So yeah, I want to open it up for any questions or discussion from the fellow members of the commission.
Thank you, Monty. Is this the entirety of your of the draft?
There's page 2. Sorry, there's a small amount on the second page.
Okay,
I would
thank you.
request, Manny, that you read that letter, because especially people in the back, that it's fairly small type, they might not be able to see it well.
Yeah, Rio, is that okay on timing?
Yeah, that might work too. If you could
Yeah,
start
that
at the
might be
top
faster.
again.
That might be faster, yeah. In the interest of time.
Yeah, could you start at the top of the letter again?
Yeah, I think we can skip the preamble. Let's go down to the action. Thank you. Okay, any comments from the commissioners?
Still reading.
Okay. I would actually go ahead.
Well, I mean, in terms of comments, if we're going to be voting on this, sounds like that's what the expectation is.
Yeah.
I'll say that I'm not for a pause. I think whether they get located here or they get located in Santa Clara, they get located, what side of the city limits they get located, and doesn't particularly matter. I think that there are benefits to these data centers that are sort of broader, they're ephemeral. They're being located here not because this is a cheap place to put a data center, but because it's part of the economy. They want short latency. Even if the data center isn't hiring a lot of people, a lot of other businesses are at, there's a lot of value to this happening. And to me, it's like I'm watching a revolution. And San Jose can pause it or not pause it. I don't see the benefit that San Jose gets from pausing it, given that it's going to happen around us, if not here. So I would scratch that. Dashboard's fine, and other things I'm fine, but the basic issue of pause, we can't just sit and wait. How long would it take? How long would we have to pause before we'd have sort of a consensus in this community? That's essentially just saying, let's go with the New York route and not have data centers located in our city limits. And we might be proud of that, but it's not going to do us any good, and it's not going to do the environment any good. And so I'm, reject that point just up front. So we can go on further, but I'll say that. I'm one.
Okay, thank you. Macwin, I think you had a comment next, and then I'll go to you.
Yeah, I like a lot of the points here, and I'm gonna go in the similar route as Victor was just explaining. I do like the strong statement of developing the thresholds and standards, and I like the dashboard too. I mean, I don't think there's a dashboard. I know there's a page now, but I think a dashboard would be a better visual representation of what's going on. And I like the environmental analysis. But the pausing is, like Victor said, I think we should remove that from the points.
Okay, Glenn.
Question, two issues. I'll make a comment and first a question. Were you asking for a vote on this or no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I'm with Victor. I object to the pausing the execution of this. Among the reasons that he mentioned also are reasons I elaborated in my attachment, which is that almost certainly data centers in other states are likely to be more emitting than data centers in California. So that's a serious concern. We're trying to be we're not doing everything we do here for the benefit of San Jose. It's sort of to make a template or to be a model for other states. And so having ultra high standards that cause too many barriers is not likely to be adopted by other states. I also have various, I mean, I like a dashboard and some of the other things here. but I have problems with some other details, like these development agreements. My understanding, those don't exist for data centers. Those are not a thing, is from what I just learned from Erica and Manuel. So that's another detail where I have concern about this. All right, so those are my comments.
Okay. Anybody else?
I understand why the concept of a pause seems valid. Because what we've experienced thus far is all the other issues in the letter have not been addressed at all. And so the concept of a pause, I think, is a way to insist that these other issues get, at least in the way they're described here, get dealt with. I agree that there is some wording changes here that would be required, that we would need to do to fundamentally make, even like, for instance, cumulative environmental analysis, that could be very difficult as projects continue to multiply, whether they're on pause or not. But I think that in to honor what the pause is trying to do, is there a way to come up with a different language that isn't as restrictive as pause? And yet what it does is puts the onus on making sure that the city does honor this is all about making sure the public is involved and making sure that various issues around environmental and climate are dealt with and strongly considered. So is there a way that we can adjust the wording a little bit to make sure that the city is we're very clear that these other issues need to be in some fashion resolved? We probably need to adjust the letter a little bit in a few ways to make certain, to make, like, for Glenn comfortable with a couple of the other things potentially, although none of us will be comfortable with everything. But so that opens up, is there another language, is there something other than pause that we can use to address this issue, the issue that I think that Manny has brought forward?
So I think, of course, I'm supportive of that language, but I think similar could be achieved by stating that we want to ensure that all data center projects currently proposed at any stage fulfill the finalized standards that are made from this detailed community engagement process that we talk about in the letter. So if all current data centers in the approval process are required to meet those standards, and they aren't lost and completed before these standards are even implemented, I think that would achieve the same thing, the same goal.
Just really quick, I do want to note that we do still have a few agenda items to get through tonight. And just to consider potentially reviewing this letter and maybe having a more in-depth discussion at the next meeting for consideration.
Is there a way that the commission can, because I know Manny's very concerned about, we all are, about the timing of all this, and 2 months go by and things continue to change. Is there a way that the letter could be adopted or changed and then adopted prior to the next meeting? Is that possible?
Yeah, that goes into Brown Act question, right? Which I do not think we can discuss and effectively edit without a public forum, is my understanding of the Brown Act.
Ad hoc, maybe.
Yeah, we would need to have a vote to, approve as amended if we were to move forward tonight. Otherwise, there would have to be a special session, which obviously is a heavy lift. Those are the only options.
Any other comments? If not, I have a couple. Go ahead.
I just suggest we delay till next meeting.
I think the issue there is that all of us in the climate community, all of those who showed up here to give public comment, we feel climate change is something urgent. The process of data center approval in the city is not a distant one. So there's kind of an urgency in getting at least something out, making some use of all of this time that all of us were here today. So I feel quite strongly about having something to show for it. I believe other commissioners may feel similarly. So I'm very open to discussion about amendments, but I do want to make sure we get something out of this.
Yeah, actually before that, any other commissioners?
So Manny, when you say you want to get something out of this, could you be more specific? Do you want to have an amended letter approved tonight? Is that the concept?
Yes, ideally, or at least some brief summary of the important points that everyone is in agreement on and that were brought forward by the public.
I would say let's try to do this quickly and see how it goes. And if we can't, then we'll stop. But let's get this going. So let's start with number one. So Manny, what would you want to rephrase that? Point one.
Ensure that data centers at any step of approval currently are subject to the final standards that are adopted in the following steps.
And who is taking notes so that we can make sure that this gets amended properly?
We're recording this.
We're
and
recording, so okay.
I'll try to
okay,
jot
good.
down some notes, but I'll.
All right.
All right, great. So what,
Trying to edit page and a quarter in public this late in the agenda seems really ambitious. And I know people have a lot of interest in this issue. There seems to be a lot of distrust of the city, a lot of distrust.
Move closer to the mic.
A lot of distrust of everything. And what, and I see that. I don't agree with much of it. I don't understand a lot about the data centers, but I do understand the staff. And I've worked with the staff now with the commission for 6 years, maybe. And, these people are really trying and they're really smart and they do trying very hard to get a good deal for the city. They're trying very hard to protect the environment and to try to sort of grab the steering wheel out of their hands because we're scared and because we don't understand things. Just sort of seems almost insulting to me. I understand the motivation, but I am sort of disturbed by, that process. And so, there are things that I think we should do, the city should do, maybe to respond to what people think, but I can't, the whole idea of trying to edit this now just seems hard.
well, I'm not sure that it is that hard, Victor, because we've heard from Glenn, who's got, you were saying everything's fine except one thing. I think you were saying that.
No, I didn't. I said I was starting with one thing.
Yeah.
We were going to go through the list in order, and the very first thing was pause, and I said, I'm not for that. Dashboard, I'm okay with. Cumulative environmental analysis, I'm against that because if we wait for that, that could be a long time. I don't see that production. Moving on, quantitative thresholds. I think that the process is already going to try to, there are air quality standards, there are all sorts of infrastructure for managing these things. Go back and tweak them for one particular type of load, which intrinsically is not a big emitter directly, it's indirect maybe. So I would not be for the cumulative environmental analysis or quantitative thresholds. Accessible to communities, 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet. You know, I got a postcard. My neighborhood is just enraged because the Costco, an Osh is turning into a Costco. And we all shop at Costco. We just don't want it to be in our neighborhood. So I understand, but we can go further out. Moving next page, 6, transparency. Crying out loud, everything is so transparent already. I mean, everything that's not by law held confidential is out there, and the city goes to great effort to put it out there. So, you know, 2 or 3 of these I'll go for, but the rest of them won't have my support, and we'll leave it at that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think also it needs to be some more homework done on this. So I move that we table the discussion on this for this meeting, and if the authors would like, they can try to come with another version for the next meeting.
I just have one comment before we move on to that, which is that our job here as the Climate Commission is to provide the strongest voice in the city process for the climate, for our future in the climate. And we are not at all trying to take the steering wheel out of anybody's hands. We're trying to do our job to provide the strongest pro-climate cautions and advice and perspectives from the community. I think that is something that the community as a whole and climate advocates are strongly asking us to do. So I think it's very appropriate that we move forward some recommendation.
Yeah, so I guess I'm gonna jump in here. I've been deferring for a little bit. One suggestion first, we could in theory, vote by line item. I think that is a allowed, motion, right? To vote per line. So we could approve, for example, 2, 3, and 5, but defer to, agree to amend 1, 4, and 6 or something. And to the point that the pause that everybody's talking about, one, we serve the city. We as commission is supposed to serve the city, and 2, very importantly, what we motion for here, vote for here as a commission is non-binding because we cannot write laws. Whatever we say is not a law. So, even if we vote on like the most strict thing possible, no data center ever, period, and end of discussion, that is not binding. So I want the commissioners to keep that in mind.
But whatever we say is important, so we should.
Yes, to that point, it is. But however, yeah, thank you. However, it is symbolic, because we do have Climate Advisory Commission attached to our names, and to the point of pausing, perhaps a compromise could be made on specifying a time, right? Like indefinite, like a pause without a language might give some of our commissioners pause, but we could say pause until a provision is met, or a time. That's something we could quickly discuss and work on. But once again, to that point, I think it is important that we vote at least on something, and that's why I would personally advocate for voting by line item. I guess that ignores the preamble, but and also possibly amending some items here and there so that we could come to an agreement.
Well, I think you're trying to find a middle ground, which is what I was trying to do, and I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we can vote on at least 2 points on there.
Okay. To that end, Money, would you like to suggest an amendment to which was the most discussed point number 1?
Let's see. What about entirely removing the word pause and just saying ensure that all data centers currently in the approval process are subjected to the finalized standards that the city comes to?
That sounds like what it's already, right? Is there anything, I would go with that because I think that's what's the status quo. So on that basis, I would not have a problem. If it meant that it materially affected the decisions on any projects, I would be against it. But if it's within, and it sounds like, I mean, there's a lot, they're working on this. They've put a lot of effort in this. They walk in here, it's hard to second guess them, but I would agree with that. I would like to see it written. Can we have it typed? No, can we type it up so that it's on the screen just to see what's there?
We really,
The phrase, can you type in?
so we're going to end up rewriting this?
Well, I'd like to say again, slowly. Sounded like I'm okay.
Ensure that all data centers currently in the approval process are subjected to the finalized standards as set by the city government.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, can we have a motion to vote on the amended number 1?
We're good. I'm good. I move that we vote on this.
Okay.
Motion one.
Anyone second? Okay, all those in favor?
Actually, what does that mean?
Go ahead, Moni.
Ensure that all data centers currently in the approval process are subjected to the finalized standards as set by the city government.
Is there a timeline associated with that? Like, when will that happen? Finalized, you know?
That is something that the city government as a whole has not fully established yet. We've seen parts of that timeline from the earlier presentations, but the finalized rules.
Everything that's being reviewed is being reviewed based on current, law policy for the city, right? I mean, someone comes for a permit, they get a decision based on what's on the books now. Those things might change. I don't remember anything that's sort of being discussed now that, I can't give you a permit because the city hadn't ruled on it yet, but everything can build a data center here under current rules.
So if I can interrupt, Vic, I think, the data center standards came about as a result of direction from the rules committee to staff, to the city managers to look at and pull up develop a more defined set of standards for data centers. So I think it's the end result of that particular action and direction. So that, I mean, you're right, there's stuff ongoing, but I think this is referring to what would come out of that happened on that date. So, I mean, maybe you could specify it in that way.
Okay, not to put you in the position of speaking for another department that's no longer in the room, but put you in that position. Would this be impactful to the approval of data centers if this were, I mean, we're not make what we say but if the council were to say this, oh yeah, we like what the commission said, we're going to pause until, or we're going to require everything to have these rules.
I mean, I can't conjecture if this would move city council.
No, if it had, I mean, what I don't want to sort of say, if things are being finalized in some indefinite schedule, and that would be impactful, then I would be against it. That's all. If it's, I mean, people can prove we can build a data center now. I mean, it's right. And so there are things on the books now that have a process for meeting many, many criteria for everything.
If I may interrupt, Victor, for the sake to expedite the process, I don't see any reason why we can't move forward. Let's not worry about one for the moment. Let's move forward with the others quickly. And then it could be, I don't know if anyone would agree with me, but it could be that we could finalize this letter without defining number 1 at all. And then at the next meeting, we do a better job of defining 1. But at least we get things moving around public access to information, et cetera. And we can put timelines on that more easily.
I don't know. I don't understand the viability of item number 6. either.
Well, let's go.
Okay,
let's
okay,
go-
how's this? How's this? For now, let's give ourselves, commissioners, let's give ourselves two options. One, we can either vote to defer to discuss at the next meeting or vote to approve as written. So to that end, how should I do this? What is the most logistically accurate way of doing?
Agree with that. We were just processing something that you mentioned we could do, and now all of a sudden we're shifting gears again. So let's just stay with the process that you
Okay.
defined.
All right,
And except
Okay.
all I'm suggesting is we just don't worry about number one right now. If we bring that to the next meeting, if we're having, I just don't want to get stuck on number one for the next hour talking about number one and just
Yeah.
move forward on the others that
Wha-
seem to be more, we are more in agreement on. Am I the only one that?
Karen,
feels that way?
are you proposing two letters?
Yes, I am proposing to a letter that fundamentally talks about understanding, giving the public access and all the other, 2 through 6, and then coming back to the issue of number one if we need to.
Well, only thing is we did just make a reworking of item number 1. So would it be worthwhile to just take a vote on that one, see if we can make it through that?
Well, that's,
sure.
well, why don't we take a vote on on your adjusted number one right now?
Sure. Anybody motion to once again vote on item number 1 as amended?
I think, didn't you do that?
Yeah.
Make a motion?
Since we
I did not move for one. I said I didn't object to it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, motion to vote as amended.
I'll move to motion vote.
Anyone second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay, that's 1, 2, 3. All those opposed?
Sorry, opposed to amending it?
Passing as amended.
And and then you will ask for abstentions, right?
Yes, remaining will be abstentions.
Abstain.
Yeah, abstentions.
But number one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, just number 1. Abstentions?
For approval or
Yeah.
Abstention.
approval?
Yeah.
As amended approval.
Yes, yes. I'm trying to count. Sorry, I'm trying to move my neck to count. Okay, let's start over. Amended number 1. All those in favor? Okay, all those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay, so that's 3 to
2.
3 to 0 to.
But you need a
majority.
you need a
You need a
majority.
majority.
I mean, you need a quorum.
Yeah.
Quorum.
Well, yeah, it's a
Think-
to meet and would be a majority.
I just,
I think-
maybe a comment. I think we've heard from the public. I feel like we're forced to water down this language, and I don't think that that's the intent if it's symbolic, because what is wrong with holding city council to the highest levels of standard in term? Why shouldn't we want that for the city? And so I'm conflicted with this. If it means to defer, so there's time to digest the language and massage it a little bit, then that's, that is my preference. But changing we're completely watering down the intent of the conversation today. in my
I
opinion.
totally agree with you. I think the issue is that there are some things like number 2, public dashboards. There are some things that have not been happening to give the public information, and that is, we're at an emergency situation now. And that's why waiting 2 more months for things like that really puts, it's really problematic. I'll put it that way. That's, I think, what Manny was trying to do.
Yeah.
And, to call out the things that are really, really urgent to resolve. And of course, we don't resolve it, but we can tell the city we want them to resolve it. Right, obviously.
I understand that.
Yeah. So that was a vote of when you abstain, you just take it out of denominator.
I mean, it just doesn't, you still need a majority.
We did not.
No, it's, I mean, it has to be a majority of the, even if they,
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
So
but
is it possible to just vote on the points as they are
Mhm.
and then see which ones pass?
Mhm.
instead of
sure, we
trying to
could,
do
yeah,
that?
since we didn't vote on as written, we could actually vote, or we could actually motion to vote as it is too.
I think the main, what I'm feeling is that people want to do this, but we want to spend some time to make sure it's right. But then Mani's saying we can't wait 2 months, but I think we should make sure I do want to do my, little bit of homework before because there's a lot of things here in addition to the bold points that, so I don't want to rush the process.
I will say that when I printed out and went through the packet, I didn't see this.
Same.
So getting it now is rough for me. We'll say I'm neurodivergent, but I'm weird. And having time to read something really helps.
So, Matt, going to your point, was that a motion to vote per line as is, all of them, just in a row? And, okay. Anyone second?
I'll second.
Okay, then I will just do 6 in a row, if that's okay. Motion to approve number 1 as is. All those in favor? All those opposed? Was that a yes?
Yeah.
Okay. All those opposed? Okay, all those abstaining? Okay, so that's 3 to 1 to 4. This motion fails. Motion to approve number 2 as is. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? That's, I believe, 7 to 0 to 1. This motion passes. All those in favor of motion number 3 as is? All those opposed? All those abstaining? By a vote of 4 to 1 to 3, this motion actually fails. Right, it's majority, right? And 50 plus 1, right? Just do procedural.
Majority is 6, 7, I mean?
No, it's majority. So we have 8, so we need 5.
Majority of present.
Majority present.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 8 divided by 2 plus 1 is 5. All right, motion to vote, motion to approve number 4 as is. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Glenn, which one are you? Abstain? Okay, by a vote of 6 to 1 to 1, this motion passes. That was number 4, correct? Okay. All those in favor of motion number, item number 5, all those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? That is by the vote of 5 to 0 to 3, this item number 5 also passes. Could you move on to the next page, please? And since we haven't been on page 6 for a little bit, I'm going to pause for 30 seconds.
Just to clarify, Zach, can you comment? Is this remotely legal? What's listed?
I think council could direct staff not to sign non-disclosure agreements.
So,
I mean, there are not so many.
Erica just mentioned to us that even the wattage is not, the wattage of a data center is not public.
Well, that's not the same as NDA.
I assume it kind of,
That's correct, because the wattage, they wouldn't share that with the city. And therefore there would be no non-disclosure issue there.
Well, since we've motioned to vote as is, all those in favor of number 6? All those opposed? All those abstaining? By the motion, by the vote of 5 to 2 to 1, this number 6 passes. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you very much. We now move on to
Wait, should we have a vote on the preamble and post language?
Should we? I guess yes, right? The vote on the preamble. I suppose we have to, huh?
If it's gonna be in the letter.
Yes, I suppose we do. Could you go back to the preamble, please? That is a good point. No, go down. I think we don't need to vote on the title. Thank you, though. All right, since we do already have the motion to vote, motion to approve this preamble as is, all those in favor?
So the first, I guess, statement of the second paragraph, that's like repeating one of the points anyways, right? Or is that, did we vote on that part? The standards, whatever that says. There's a point that covers standards too, right? Did that pass?
Oh, are you talking about point number 2?
I can't see it.
Yes, I believe 2. Do you have the vote for 2?
Totally different.
Yeah, I don't think that's the same at all. There's no, I don't see any,
So go number 4.
I don't think that's the same at all.
Establish standards.
Yeah, I don't think, because it's not an action item. Yeah, so therefore I do not think it's the same. All right, okay, let's revote. All those in favor? Oh, I need to vote too. All those opposed? All those abstaining? By the vote of 6 to 0 to 2, this preamble passes.
Are we gonna vote on the last part?
Yes. And I'm gonna pause 30 seconds again. Apologies, Matt Quinn, for moving on a little too quick.
You're good.
For the procedural accuracy purposes, we're not voting on money. That last bit, the last 3 lines, we're not voting on. No, sincerely, Manny Bukele, youth representative, we're not voting on that. We're not voting on his name. Okay, commissioners, are you ready? Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? By the vote of 6 to 1 to 1, this also passes. All right.
Good job, good job.
Let's move on to the next item on the agenda. I believe there was a request to flip item B and C on the new business. we do actually need to vote on this. Any comments from the commissioner before someone motions to vote? Seeing none, is there a motion to vote?
I move to vote.
Anyone second? To flip B and C. This was a request. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay, by the vote.
We're good for flipping it. I voted.
Okay, by a vote of 8-0, this motion passes. So with that, next item is item number C, legislative and regulatory outlook. Who has the floor for this?
We have Stephen and Heather.
Okay.
And before we get started on this item, just want to note that we do have a hard stop at 9:30 because they lock up City Hall at 10. And so we need time to exit the building. It is 8:50. 8:51.
Okay, for that, on that note, I'm gonna limit everybody to 1 minute except speakers themselves. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. If you don't mind, I'll just go ahead and use the public comment microphone here just so I can stand up while I present. Really great to see you all, and thank you everybody from the community as well who's still here in attendance and online as well. Really appreciate the time. My name's Stephen Jimenez. I'm a legislative affairs specialist with San Jose Clean Energy. Work alongside with my colleague Scott Green, who is senior government with San Jose Clean Energy as well. And just here to provide you a legislative update on the activities going on up in Sacramento. Next slide, please. In terms of the agenda, I'll just quickly walk through where we're at in the legislative process, provide a quick recap of what's going on with the state budget side of things, and then also providing an update in terms of what advocacy we're working on here at San Jose Clean Energy, and then a broader landscape overview of the policy up in Sacramento, well, for key items. And then lastly, just identifying some next steps in terms of the legislative session and what's going to look like come August and September. Next slide, please. As you can see here, here's just a quick recap of what's going on in the legislature. Basically, I know it's a lot of icons here on the chart, but the main takeaway here is that policymakers in Sacramento have been up and at it, passing legislation through various policy and fiscal committees since the early January. And as you can see here on the orange portion here, we're in the summer recess where essentially a lot of lawmakers are going back to their district, hammering out final negotiations / details on their pending legislation. And once the legislature comes back up in August, early August, I should say, there will be a fiscal bills deadline, often referred to as the suspense file / and the appropriations committee. And then also having basically having each bill come out of each respective house in terms of end of session. And then basically throughout the month of September, having the governor either sign or veto legislation. In terms of the budget, I'll just quickly note that January, the governor did propose his budget as well, with some revisions in spring, often referred to as the May revise. And then throughout the month of June, essentially the legislature and the governor have both signed the big budget items. And really throughout the month of July through September, you'll be seeing some additional signing of those legislative budget items as well. Next slide, please. And just to give you a quick snapshot, as the title says here on the budget items, I'll just quickly note that California faced an $18 billion budget deficit. And really a big part of that is some of the ongoing state commitments to fund programs. And then two, that's really uncertainty with terms of HR 1 on the federal side of things, which is essentially commonly referred to as OBBA, One Beautiful Big Act Bill. I might be butchering that. But nevertheless, despite these challenges, the legislature did come to a balanced budget for the next 2 years. For this year, it's about $352 billion. And just to quickly gleam over some of the clean energy items that have been passed so far, $2 million for heat pump adoption using skilled and trained workforce, about $135.5 million for new zero emission electric vehicle incentive program, really intended for the purchase of first time buyers for EVs. And then over a 5-year period, really providing 85 million for to basically help low-income families and individuals switch from from their traditional gas-powered cars to cleaner vehicles. I believe 20 million is coming out this year. And just to quickly note, there's an ongoing discussion in terms of how to prioritize remaining budget items, with Prop 4 being the climate resiliency bond, and then also the greenhouse gas reduction fund, which are essentially proceeds from the cap and invest program across the state, and which we'll continue to track and expect to be finalized in August. Next slide, please. In terms of the SJCE / CalCCA, that's essentially the State Trade Association for CCAs. They've been working really hard and diligently on AB 1761 by Assembly Member Chris Rogers. Really, I also want to take a moment to thank many of you all here on the Climate Advisory Commission and members of the public as well who are still here to help us get that legislation across. This is essentially seeking to increase transparency in the power charge and difference adjustment in terms of its calculations and methodologies to really reduce rate volatility across the California. In terms of the other CalCCA sponsored bill, this is related towards resource adequacy, hourly transactability, through Senate Bill 1138 by Steve Padilla. This is essentially trying to enable just more of an hourly transactability in terms of RA, but just basically ensuring that you have enough peak demand or peak energy during the peak demand. Excuse me, I'm getting a little tongue twisted there. But aside from those efforts, I'll just add that both of those bills are in the fiscal committees, still seeking to make it out of that policy committee or fiscal committees come August, and really appreciate the engagement throughout for many of you as well. In terms of other bills that we've been working on, really just seeking to, again, increase ratepayer affordability and increasing IOU accountability as well. Also working to help and support and streamline heat pump adoption across all California cities as well, and really modernizing that effort. And then also working on basically legislation that would enable households to switch from gas appliances to electric appliances when there is a gas line replacement in planned, excuse me. Also going to add that we've been working to advance geothermal throughout California. There's a legislation in mind, but I'll just also add that there's also $10 million in the budget for geothermal exploratory wells to help build up that sector. And then there's also some funding for, there's other bills that we've been working on in terms of just creating equitable access for EV charging and multifamily housing, and making sure that transmission planning and grid capacity is sufficient in the future years in different scenarios in terms of planning at the PUC and other state agencies. Next slides, please. I think, do we skip a slide? Data centers, okay. Apologies for that. As this whole major conversation here at the commission today, data centers have really been a top priority amongst legislators. Really, some of these top issues which are listed here in terms of ratepayer affordability, making sure that when these data centers are developed, they're not impacting ratepayers disproportionately.
Might be yeah. You need to.
Oh, it's that. Thanks, sorry. I just wanted to give you a pause.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Aside from ratepayer affordability, they're also working to, of course, ensure that some of these data centers, or a lot of these data centers, excuse me, are powered through clean energy resources and mitigating environmental impacts as well, ensuring there's enough grid capacity to meet the demand for data centers, and of course, increasing transparency in terms of its resource usage and also just some of the applications that are going out there from the IOUs to build out some of these data centers, and of course, labor standards as these are constructed as well. In terms of CalCCA engagement, as I mentioned, there's a whole plethora of issues that they've been working on, or just broadly policymakers. But really, through our great work with our lobbying team, CalCCA, and many of other folks as well, other stakeholders, we've been really focusing on Assembly Bill AB 2383 and SB 886. A very, very broad stroke. Both bills seek to establish some sort of rate structure to mitigate cost shifts towards ratepayers, while also ensuring there's environmental protections. And then I'll also add, in terms of the end of session bill outlook, really just anticipating and actually just tracking, monitoring to see how these bills kind of shape out in terms of final negotiations. As I alluded to before, there's a lot of negotiations going on in the summer recess and so forth, and just really eager to see how that pans out. So we'll be closely monitoring that and ensuring that our priorities are reflected in that capacity. Aside from the legislative process and so forth, I'll just quickly note there is federal activity as well on data centers, with, basically executive order from President Trump to, help boost domestic energy production to meet future demand, and increasing, and requiring some like the CAISO essentially to justify how they're serving data centers to the Federal Energy Regulation Commission as well, often referred to as FERC. And of course, just circling back on the development of local uniform standards, that's still going to be in mind as we track these as well. Next slide, please. And then, of course, there's been rumors about a potential extension of Diablo Canyon Power Plant. What's for a way of background, this was extended back in 2022, and was set to expire in 2045, from my understanding. I don't quote me on that date. However, lawmakers extended that to 2030, and with 2030 fast approaching, there is some consideration about what an extension might look like beyond that date, with really the top issues in mind just listed once again. In terms of ratepayer affordability, again, those cost shifts and making sure there's no disproportionate impact to ratepayers. What does a loan repayment look like? And part of that initial reauthorization, I think it was about $1.4 billion that were allocated to PG&E to keep the plant operational. Just also trying to identify what how energy users or providers can basically opt in to receive credits for energy use to the Diablo Canyon Power Plant. What are the long-term costs of keeping that operational? And of course, just as importantly, it's just the seismic safety.
Diablo, doesn't it provide a fair percentage of our power right now, like around, is it 4%, 10%? What the percentage of power is for the state?
For the state, I think it's 9%.
9%.
Yeah.
Really.
Definitely big. But what we've been hearing in terms of how the seismic safety will turn out, and in terms of reauthorization amongst the legislatures, it seems that a lot of the policymakers really want to ensure the seismic safety is, of course, up to speed and ensuring that in that respect. So it's just really up in the air whether reauthorization can occur, and in terms of whether the seismic safety reporting is going to come out within the legislative process, and really just if policymakers feel comfortable to vote on it in place. But nevertheless, CalCCA and SJC is going to continue to track and monitor, see how legislation turns out, and of course, make sure that that our priorities are reflected as well. Next slide, please. In terms of the legislative finish line, I'll just quickly note that state budget negotiations are still very much underway. This, again, I'm referring back to Prop 4, Climate Resiliency Bond, and EJRF funding as well. And in addition to that, there's also going to be, a plethora of bills coming through from August through September in terms of floor votes and bill signings from the governor's office, which is the third point there. And then I'll just quickly add that, there are some key dates listed below. However, the November 3rd is just, of course, it's election day. We're going to see a new governor. And when you see essentially a new administration, you're going to see new priorities as well. So we're, of course, going to be just tracking to see how that shapes out or anything of that sort. Well, and then next slide, please. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I really appreciate the time. I know it's late, but I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? I'll take it from commissioners first.
We can also maybe have a presentation and group the questions together.
Sure.
Give time.
Sure. In the interest of time, please go ahead. Let's do public comment after hers. Is that okay? Let's go with that. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Heather Dollar, Regulatory Affairs. I'm going to be brief, and I'm going to call a bit of an audible here. You'll see that I was going to talk a bit about two proceedings at the Utilities Commission, but I think we've spoken a lot about Rule 30, so we can probably skip that one. And instead, I will just speak a little bit about a rate-making proceeding. Next slide, please. Darren, are you doing it or is he? Oh, thank you. I just want to know who I'm talking to. The reason that we're speaking with you about this particular proceeding that is in front of the Public Utilities Commission is because it could very well impact our customers' rates. And we want to just daylight for the commission that in addition to legislative advocacy, we also do regulatory advocacy. So we meet with the commissioners, we meet with staff, we work with our trade association to share our voice in San Francisco. And the main takeaway for this particular proceeding and our work here is that we are on top of it. And we want to make sure that rates are affordable for all ratepayers, not just San Jose Clean Energies, but PG&Es as well. Next slide, Darren, please. Would anyone like a primer or refresher on the PCIA, or do we feel like we got it? All right, I'm just going to skip this. All right, good. As you may know, there are a lot of challenges with the PCIA, including that it's dependent on the market, which is one of the reasons why it's so volatile year over year. The commission has changed the framework approximately 7 times in the last 10 years, making it very uncertain. It's hard to predict. Just as a brief example about the cost to our ratepayers in 2023, all of our customers, businesses, and residents paid about $13 million in the PCIA. In 24, it was $39 million. In 25, it was $28 million. And this year, we're projecting about $136 million to the PCIA. It's a big deal. And this is a big challenge that we are really fighting. Next slide, please, Darren. There's a proceeding.
Speaking of fighting, are there any organizations that really support the PCIA as it currently stands?
No.
That's, I wondered about that. Yeah. Okay.
This proceeding provides for us a real chance to reform the framework. This phase has just kicked off, so anticipate that this will take at least another year because it hasn't even really started yet. San Jose Clean Energy's goal is to completely end this particular framework. We have to, by law, maintain indifference between bundled and unbundled customers, but we think there's another way to do it. And again, the goal is to reduce costs for all customers. We can't achieve that goal, then we want to limit the scope and make the problem smaller, again, for all customers in the state. That's our secondary goal. And lastly, the thing to point out here is that we are engaged with our trade association, CalCCA, and with other CCAs across the state. We meet every week to talk about this. Because this is such a big issue for us, our trade association has engaged outside counsel. We meet with them often as well. And you'll see here on this slide just some of the actions that we've taken already, even before we've gotten the scoping ruling for this particular proceeding. So it's really early days, but we are on it, and we see this proceeding as a real opportunity to make some structural reform in this framework. That is all I have, so I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions?
One quick, did you say PCIA this year is 100 million?
It's projected to be over.
Over. So that's over 20%, maybe 25, somewhere in of the. What percent of bills?
What percent?
Or what percent of the rate of our combined kilowatt hour rate?
Oh, I have no idea.
It's yes, a quarter. Yeah. Okay.
So PG&E isn't, we were just talking, PG&E isn't, so, I mean, why would you need counsel if everyone doesn't want it the way it currently is?
Aaron, please speak to the microphone.
Or is there, like, does PG&E really want the PCIA as it stands? Seems like otherwise, why have counsel? You just, it would be something that would slide right through.
We have different ideas of what changing the framework looks like.
Who does?
The IOUs, because it's not just PG&E.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, so it is the IOUs, and okay, got it. That's what I wondered. Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just add, I apologize for having to, breeze through that, but, very much welcome any, future communications on the legislative process. And if you all have any other questions outside tonight, please encourage you all just to reach out. Yeah.
Thank you. At this point, we do have to take public comment, but in the interest of time, we'll limit everybody to at most 1 minute. At this point, members of the public, please step up to the mic.
Keep this very brief. I'm Linda Hutchins Knowles with Mothers Out Front. Relates to something that Stephen was presenting on the bills, but I was really glad to see the PCIA advocacy. But there were two data center bills that weren't mentioned that I think are important to note. AB 2469 would require reporting on projected water use, and AB 2619 would require reporting on actual water use. And it seems like that's what the city's guardrails that we're talking about. I would love to see the city actually support those measures. And also there's one more bill, it's called AB 2748. It is the one about EV charging and multifamily housing. This is a bill that would actually roll back the current CalGreen standards, which were developed in a robust stakeholder process, a win-win that provides the lowest cost installation costs and the maximum charging. And it's based on a misunderstanding of the code, and would love to see the city, who adopted the REACH code, a fantastic one on multifamily charging before the state did, to defend that for affordable housing residents. They need charging access. EVs are now the cheapest kind of cars to drive. So we could talk maybe more about that. I would love to have a conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, resident. Is there any items to vote on? No, right? Okay. If not, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item number B, San Jose Clean Energy Budget and Programs Update. Is that Zach? Cool. Thank you.
So isn't it, it's back up there?
Remember, we flipped the agenda, so it should be higher up.
Yeah, a little higher there. These are, I will be quick. Next slide. And in fact, I could not present the slides if people had a chance to review. Quick. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the slide that we showed where we thought we were going to be at the end of calendar year 2026. This is what we showed council when we were there in February. So maybe focus on the middle column. We expected to use $108 million of reserves over the course of the calendar year. So 106, the full 106 that's in the rate stabilization reserve, plus we were going to lose 2 million, and that was going to come out of the other cash. So next slide. So that the column that was in the middle is now on the left. So that's the shaded column. That's where we were, what we thought was going to happen. And then the right two are a range, a bookend of where we think we're going to actually land. So what is now the middle column, that's the sort of better case where power costs are lower. And that's the big results in the other expense, slightly smaller, a little bit lower programs budget, as you know. And so that would result in less use of the rate stabilization reserve. There's a, sort of the worst end is, it's been pretty mild for the winter, might be a mild summer. And so revenue might be down just a hair. That's what you see there. And if power costs are just a little bit better than we thought in February, then that would be that case there. But market prices are generally lower than they have been. And there's another factor that the cash collections from the energy we sold in 2025, it's been a little bit better, a little wonky, but there's always a lag. You sell power in November, that gets collected in January, February. When rates are broadly similar year over year, that sort of takes care of itself. But the big drop in our rates, our modeling was not as good as it could have been. And so there's the higher collections coming from 2025 energy. Next slide. So anyway, things are looking better. But a little bit of a broken record, but 2027 looks a little worse. So as people are starting to learn, lower prices in year one means higher PCIA in year two. PG&E's first PCIA filing for 2027 came out in May, and as we suspected, it wasn't as worse as bad as it could have been, but it was, you know, not great as we were imagining. Still, we are hopeful that next year, even with this similar PCIA situation, we would be able to set rates competitively and use significant reserves. Probably not as many as 2026. The graph that you're looking at there, so it's called competitive differential. And again, you see that what that means is PG&E's full rate minus our PCIA. That's what that number is. That's what the y-axis is. So that's what our maximum San Jose clean energy rate could be to be priced exactly at PG&E. So it's really small font there, but you see that 2026 and 2027 are pretty similar, and those are a low mark for a while. Hopefully it's going back up in 28. But anyway, as I hope I've imparted over the years, these things change a lot. So to talk about 2028 and 2029 is sort of a lot of different things could happen. Anyway, that's where we are. That's the last slide. Are there any questions?
Yeah. Remind me, what percent of our reserves of the stabilization reserves have we dipped into here?
Can we go back? So here. So our current estimate is somewhere between the max that's in there at the start of 2026 was 106 million. So 106.
I see.
So we're the better case here is us using most of it, right? And leaving what, 16 million left 17 left over. That's that bottom row there is what's left at the end of the year.
Yeah. So,
but still, as you can see, there's still 300 or 270 in the low case days of operating expense. City policy calls for how many days, Victor? 100, at least 180 days. So we deliberately made a decision in council to dig into reserves to reduce that. And you know, we're doing it, but you know, it seems like we have more room for another year of tapping reserves if needed, and we think we will need to.
I see. And then, sorry, if you go forward a page for the differential plot.
No, other direction.
Yeah. Right. This is basically how much cheaper we are.
No, this is the price. If we were priced exactly at PG&E's rate, that's what we would be. So
okay.
So this, I think that's
after accounting for the PCIA.
PCIA, that's right.
Okay.
So that's about 9 cents right now. Maybe it's 8.
Nice.
Which is below our cost.
Which is below cost.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see. Okay. I see. Tough. Very tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Zach, projection, we were going to go down about 110 million this year. And what's it look like now?
Can we go back? I didn't do the math. It looks like we're going to go down. We're going to go down 89, basically.
Okay, so that's good. And the lower average costs of power per day gives us a lot more days.
Correct. Correct.
So that doesn't hurt either.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But so essentially, we're prepared for another 2026 next year. Without, okay, all right.
Yeah, we're hoping for something a little better, but we are prepared.
Okay. Nice.
So we went down in program spending. Is that what you were saying earlier?
Very, very slightly. I think I wasn't at the meeting, but Lori was. I'm told we, you know, instead of 12, it was 10, something like that. Million.
But the reduction was not because of funds per se. It was structural spending, right? Do we cut back because this is a rough year?
We cut back slightly in the desire to make sure that we can do continually a stable budget and not, 16 million one year, 8 another year. So trying to pick a number that we feel pretty confident we're not going to have to go below. And yeah, that's where we.
Okay. And speaking to this table, which was the table on the programs, it looks like we're getting almost all of it from half the funding. The other things are important programs, but they're not buying many tons.
Yeah, I'll Kate is on the line. If we're done with this, we can maybe if you can just hold that for a second, we can talk about the stuff that she prepared, and if that's the format that's helpful, and some high level statements about what you're talking about, Vic, if that's okay.
Could you scroll down a couple pages? This
Yeah,
one,
so
correct?
at I'm sorry, was there
this one, right?
Yes. So is Kate unmuted? Katie, you still there?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Vic, I think what you're getting to is the heat pump program. We doubled our forecast for number of heat pumps going through the program, and that was a significant contributor to greenhouse gas reductions.
Good. Thank you. So I like the format. I like what you've done.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, I guess, yeah, would love feedback on the format of the quarterly report. For this one, we look back on the fiscal year, but for future quarterly reports, we propose to look back on the previous quarter. And if this level of detail works.
Good. There are lots of thumbs up going on.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
In the interest of time, thumbs up. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Is I don't know what you call the new version of the super off peak. I don't know what the name of that program is, but is that the 5.7 cent reduction per kilowatt hour, bring the 9 to 2? Is that going to further erode your balance sheet?
So that program is captured in our peak rewards for smart home budget next year. So it's captured under our demand response budget.
Sorry, it's on this page or no?
Yes.
No. No, for 26, 27,
yeah.
I can pull it up and email to you.
Okay. But is there a message? Is that a big cost, a big hit, or not a big deal?
It's not. All of our demand response pathways, I think the budget is just over $1 million, maybe it's 1.2 million. And I'll look it up, but that includes the midday charging plus EV chargers, batteries, behavioral demand response, and commercial and industrial.
I see.
And we're hoping that as that scales, we can identify a pathway for it to be revenue neutral.
I see. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there a public comment at this point? There's one. We'll allow 30 seconds. Actually, we're almost out of time, so I'm going to say 30 seconds. Seeing nobody stepping up, that concludes all of our agenda items for.
We usually end meetings with a call for any agenda items for future meetings. Will we do that this time?
Yeah, that was what I was going to do next.
Okay.
The next, so I am obligated to first say that the next meeting will be on September 17th, 2026 at 6 p.m. here in San Jose City Hall, Tower Room 17153. Location is just like today, subject to change. With that, any from commissioners motion to add an agenda item? Monty?
I think there's been strong interest and debate on the data center item, so I feel like it could be appropriate to establish an ad hoc committee for that at some point, or vote on the establishment of an ad hoc committee. So I'd suggest adding a vote on the establishment of that ad hoc committee to the agenda next time.
Okay, all those in favor?
And this is to just
Next-
come up with the
Right.
language.
Right. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? By the vote of 5 to 1 to 2, this motion passes. Okay, seeing none, any other comments or motions from the commissioners?
So, regarding, so I guess I should have brought it up earlier, but on the SJC large load check-in, is it possible to have, like whenever you figure out the model for the tariffs and how that thing work, is it possible to present the details on that?
Sure, as we get closer to a decision to go to council, we will definitely bring that here.
And I would add, if we're going to have something for us to discuss and approve, having it in the packet early really is beneficial. I never saw Monty's thing, printing out stuff, looking at stuff. I saw the letters that were from Patch, but
Public.
I missed that, and sort of taking it cold is hard for me.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, and I apologize. I was finishing it at about 11 o'clock at night a couple of days ago, and kind of what comes when one is a full-time volunteer for these sorts of things.
All right, with that, we've exhausted all items, and this meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you very much.
Good job, Rio. So Monty, are you